Welcome to episode 1 of The Path to Heaven. In a cultivation world where spirit stones mean survival and danger waits beyond every city wall, Nguy Tac is nothing more than a poor wandering cultivator struggling to get by. But one chaotic encounter, one terrible purchase, and the awakening of a mysterious ancient artifact spirit are about to change everything. With limited resources, questionable luck, and a talent he has yet to understand, Nguy Tac is about to take his first real step onto a path far greater than he ever imagined. This is where his journey begins. Where the hell did this crazy woman come from? Deep inside Yellow Sand Gorge, a beautiful young woman in a silver-white magical robe was hurling blade after blade of wind, locked in a fierce battle with a stone-tailed wall lizard. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with a tiny waist and exactly the sort of curving hips Nguy Tac liked. Unfortunately, at that very moment he was hiding in a pit less than 50 zhang from the curvy little beauty and the stone-tailed wall lizard. A thick layer of yellow sand covered his entire body, leaving only his head crowned with dry grass sticking out. He was so furious his mouth was practically twisting sideways. A stone-tailed wall lizard was a mid-tier second-ranked demonic beast. The two metallic fluorescent scales on its back were worth 3 low-grade spirit stones. The glossy black skin of its belly was soft yet tough, perfect for making close-fitting inner armor, and worth another 2. Its scale-covered tail could cut through black iron and was worth 1 more. 6 low-grade spirit stones in total. Stone-tailed wall lizards usually moved in pairs and nested in caves along cliff faces. They could race across sheer rock walls as though flying. If one escaped into its nest, catching it again would be almost impossible. Nguy Tac had waited here for 2 full days before finally catching one alone and far from the cliffs. He could practically see 6 low-grade spirit stones glittering inside his pouch already. Then, just as he was about to strike, a silver-robed beauty appeared from nowhere and shouted in delight, "Ha! What luck! A second-ranked demonic beast." Without even noticing Nguy Tac lying in ambush nearby, she charged straight at the stone-tailed wall lizard. Her cultivation appeared to have reached the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm, exactly 2 levels above Nguy Tac. The silver-white magical robe on her body was clearly woven from silver silkworm silk and embroidered with rows of patterns, obviously worth quite a bit. The wind blades she released gleamed with a cold, icy aura. Every strike slammed into the stone-tailed wall lizard with a sharp crack, shaking its body and sending flecks of frost flying from the scales on its back. At first glance, she really did look like an expert with the battle firmly under control. But to Nguy Tac, her beauty and her brains were clearly complete opposites. Anyone passing through Yellow Sand Gorge would know that the stone-tailed wall lizard's most vulnerable point was its neck. Yet every single wind blade she threw was aimed straight at the armor on its back. If those 2 backplates were so easy to break, would they still be worth 3 low-grade spirit stones? Even an ordinary cultivator thinking with his backside would know to attack while retreating, keeping as much distance from the beast as possible. Yet this silver-robed beauty stood rooted to the spot and kept throwing wind blades. Worst of all, every time she attacked, she cried out in a clear voice, "Ice wind blade, heaven above." Did she think she was acting in a play? It was painfully obvious that she was a sheltered daughter of some great family. Someone who had never known hardship. Having reached the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm, she probably assumed taking down a second-ranked demonic beast would be easy. Even if a pig lay on the ground and let you stab its hooves all day, you could exhaust yourself half to death without killing it. Did she think her true essence was endless, vast as the sea? Sure enough, exactly as Nguy Tac expected, it wasn't long before the young woman's face turned pale. She pulled out 2 bottles of chi recovery powder and poured them down her throat. Smack! While drinking the second bottle, her next wind blade came a little too slowly. The stone-tailed wall lizard had already closed the distance, and it showed no mercy. Its tail whipped toward her. The strike missed by a hair, but the girl still jumped in fright, her face turning white. Now's my chance! At that moment, the stone-tailed wall lizard had its back to Nguy Tac's hiding place. With a muffled boom, he burst out of the yellow sand. A blast of hard wind struck the ground beside the beast and knocked it tumbling over. At the same time, a blue-green blade of water formed in Nguy Tac's hand and slashed straight toward the creature's neck. Boom! But just as the blue-green water blade was about to hit, a burst of flame suddenly smashed into the stone-tailed wall lizard and sent it flying sideways. Nguy Tac flung himself to the ground in alarm, barely avoiding the spreading flames. "A fireball talisman! What the hell are you doing?" Nguy Tac finally lost his temper. He sprang to his feet and shouted. The stone-tailed wall lizard had already been as good as crippled. Even if it didn't die, it would no longer be much of a threat. Yet this lunatic woman who had appeared out of nowhere had chosen that exact moment to throw a fireball talisman. They already had the beast in the bag. What was the point of wasting such a powerful talisman? Nguy Tac glanced over. The stone-tailed wall lizard had fallen to the ground. Its body was more badly scorched, but since the flames had missed its vital point, it was only injured, not dead. More importantly, the explosion from a fireball talisman was so loud that it could easily attract the beast's mate. What are you skulking around here for? Hurry up and leave. Stop getting in my way. Instead of feeling guilty, the silver-robed beauty raised her delicate brows and scolded him. Fireball talisman? Frost talisman? Swiftwind talisman? Before Nguy Tac could even answer, she had already pulled out 3 more talismans. She really was rich. The 2 bottles of chi recovery powder and the talismans she had already used were worth more than 4 low-grade spirit stones. Now she had brought out 3 more. Even if another stone-tailed wall lizard really appeared, she would probably be able to handle it easily. Pop! Boom! Then something happened that made Nguy Tac stare with his mouth hanging open. The silver-robed beauty actually threw both the frost talisman and the fireball talisman at the already badly injured stone-tailed wall lizard. A ribbon of white mist froze the beast solid, and then a burst of fire engulfed it. Naturally, that was the end of its miserable life. Almost at the same instant, another stone-tailed wall lizard appeared and charged madly toward the 2 of them. There's another one! The silver-robed beauty slapped the Swiftwind talisman onto herself. A layer of hard wind wrapped around her body, and she shot forward at great speed, unleashing another wild barrage of wind blades at the charging beast. Mother of heaven! Her ice wind blades looked impressive enough, but they barely threatened the stone-tailed wall lizard at all. The beast soon realized that it couldn't catch the silver-robed beauty, so it turned and lunged at Nguy Tac instead. The stone-tailed wall lizard kept leaping unpredictably to dodge her wind blades, leaving Nguy Tac no chance to knock it down and strike its weak point. Whether the first beast had been its beloved wife or husband, Nguy Tac had no idea. Either way, after watching its mate get brutally murdered by 3 talismans, this one went berserk and chased him with murderous determination. You coward! Why are you running around like that? Stop and fight it! The stone-tailed wall lizard was about to catch him, and to make things worse, the silver-robed beauty was still shouting at him with contempt from behind. Damn it! Realizing he couldn't outrun it, Nguy Tac grimaced and pulled an earthy yellow jade talisman from inside his robe. He poured true essence into it. Yellow currents of earth element energy spilled out and formed a dark yellow shield about 2 feet wide in front of him. Smack! Smack! The stone-tailed wall lizard attacked again and again, but every strike was blocked by the small earthen shield. Whoosh! A streak of blood suddenly appeared across the furious beast's neck, and its body contracted violently. Ha ha! The silver-robed beauty launched another wind blade. The stone-tailed wall lizard twitched twice, then went still. What now? Nguy Tac shook his head speechlessly. While the beast had been attacking him, the silver-robed beauty had somehow gotten lucky. One of her wind blades had finally struck the softest part of its body, its neck. You still haven't answered me. What were you sneaking around over there for? Were you planning to steal my 2 stone-tailed wall lizards? The silver-robed beauty looked smugly at the 2 dead beasts, then turned her gaze toward Nguy Tac. What do you mean? I was trying to steal your 2 stone-tailed wall lizards. I've been lying in ambush here for 2 days. If you hadn't come in and ruined everything, why would I have had to use my Earth Shield treasure talisman? Looking at the earthy yellow jade talisman in his hand, its light almost completely faded and a crack now running through it, Nguy Tac could no longer contain himself. This Earth Shield treasure talisman was worth at least 6 low-grade spirit stones. It was one of the few treasures he had struggled to obtain, and it could only be used 3 times in total. Each use summoned an Earth Element defensive shield, strong enough to block even a spell cast by a 5th-level Divine Sea Realm Cultivator. Nguy Tac had already used it once before. Originally, after ambushing and killing one stone-tailed wall lizard, he had planned to ambush the other as well, without losing anything. But because this lunatic woman had turned everything into a mess, he had been forced to use it again. That was the equivalent of losing 2 low-grade spirit stones. What a prodigal! If I had that many first-rank fireball talismans and frost talismans, I'd be ambushing 3rd-rank demonic beasts. And she used 3 talismans just to kill one stone-tailed wall lizard. Every time Nguy Tac remembered how she had casually burned through 4 talismans he couldn't even afford to buy, his heart ached. You think someone like you could kill 2 stone-tailed wall lizards? Look how clumsy you are. I killed both of them, so naturally they belong to me. The silver-robed beauty looked at him with utter disdain. I'm clumsy? Did you come here to hunt stone-tailed wall lizards or to throw spirit stones around for entertainment? You ruined this beast so badly that it's worth 2 low-grade spirit stones at most. Your 2 bottles of chi recovery powder plus 4 first-rank talismans were already worth 4. You didn't even know its neck was its weakest point, yet you still came out here hunting one. If you keep firing wind blades the way you did, you could attack its back armor 100 times and still fail to break it. So which one of us is stupid? Nguy Tac stared back at her and laughed coldly. You, the silver-robed beauty, went pale with anger and stubbornly retorted. No matter what, I killed both stone-tailed wall lizards. I'm not giving you either one. If you want to rob me, go ahead and try. Excuse me, could you turn away for a moment? Nguy Tac suddenly asked. The silver-robed beauty blinked. Turn away? I think my stomach hurts. I've been squatting in that hole for so long that I can't hold it anymore. As he spoke, Nguy Tac began untying his belt. You, the silver-robed beauty, hurriedly turned away in panic. A moment later, she sensed something was wrong. When she spun back around, Nguy Tac was already running off with both stone-tailed wall lizards in his hands, nearly out of sight. You shameless bastard! She had already used up her Swiftwind talisman and couldn't catch him. Her face went white with rage. Ha ha! Still running, Nguy Tac blew her a kiss. Beautiful lady, next time we meet, let's have tea together. My 13 low-grade spirit stones. Late at night, a miserable howl echoed from a small stone house in the western district of Spirit Peak City. There was almost nothing worth mentioning inside the shabby room. On the wall beside the bed hung several paintings of the same palace-dressed beauty. A stunning face, a full chest, and most importantly, skin as white as snow and smooth as congealed cream. The paintings were exquisitely done. The woman looked almost alive, her eyes seeming to move as though she might step straight out of the artwork. A faint glow radiated from them, proof that they were not cheap. Strangely, however, the chest area of every painting had turned slightly gray, as if it had been touched and stained repeatedly. The young man in coarse green clothes, howling as though his mother had died, was none other than Nguy Tac, the same man who had recently snatched 2 stone-tailed wall lizards from Yellow Sand Gorge on Yellow Dragon Mountain. The reason he was screaming was simple. Earlier that day, at the free market in the Eastern District, he had been selling an ordinary white ferret after painting black stripes across its fur and passing it off as a young black-winged marten. While doing so, he had spotted an old country bumpkin dressed in clothing so rustic, it could hardly have been more rustic. With a face so honest, it could hardly have looked more honest. A black jade bottle. The bottle shimmered with black light. Within that glow were countless mysterious ancient runes, tiny as ants. At a glance, it looked very much like a powerful magical treasure. After a long round of bargaining, Nguy Tac had paid 13 low-grade spirit stones for it. On the way home, he had been beside himself with excitement. Even the cheapest spirit-grade magical treasure had to be worth far more than 13 low-grade spirit stones. Then it started raining. By the time he got home and pulled the bottle out, the beautiful black jade vessel had become a dull gray ceramic jar. The outer coating had washed away. Apparently, it had been covered with some kind of tree resin. If someone wanted to sell a fake, couldn't they at least use a real jade bottle? Smearing a little resin over cheap ceramic and calling it a treasure was simply too shameless. At least when Nguy Tac painted black stripes onto white ferrets, he used resin from the black phoenix balsam, which never faded. What made it even worse was that the ceramic jar had 2 cracks in it. Once the resin washed away, they were completely exposed. The runes on the jar were real enough, Nguy Tac didn't recognize them. But even if the thing had once been a magical treasure, 2 cracks like these made it useless. He had already tried pouring true essence into it, filling it with water, heating it over a flame, every method he could think of. The jar had not reacted at all. Nguy Tac was not that prodigal beauty from Yellow Sand Gorge. For a low-level independent cultivator like him, 13 low-grade spirit stones was a fortune. He had worked so hard to kill those 2 stone-tailed wall lizards, yet because one of them had been almost completely ruined, the pair together had sold for only 8 low-grade spirit stones. These days, everyone was as cunning as a ghost. Spirit stones were hard to earn, and once you had them, you still needed to save some for yourself. Nguy Tac was only at the 2nd level of the Divine Sea Realm. If he cultivated freely by absorbing spiritual energy directly from spirit stones, he would need at least 6 or 7 low-grade spirit stones every day. In reality, he only dared use 1 or 2 at most. His cultivation was perpetually starving for spirit stones. Even then, after 2 or 3 months, he usually managed to save only a dozen or so. He never used those savings for ordinary cultivation. They were emergency capital, kept for situations where he urgently needed money, and now he had been swindled out of 13 low-grade spirit stones in one stroke. How could his heart not bleed? My 13 low-grade spirit stones. The more Nguy Tac thought about it, the more he wanted to cry. In a fit of rage, he hurled the jar that had cost him 13 low-grade spirit stones onto the floor. If it shattered, he fully intended to stomp on the pieces another 17 or 18 times, before he could begin to vent the fury that made him want to smash his own head against the wall. What now? Nguy Tac suddenly froze. Crack! The jar looked as if the slightest touch should have shattered it into 70 or 80 pieces. Yet after hitting the floor, nothing happened. At most, another small crack had appeared, and then it flashed with green light. Quickly, quickly, give me blood to drink. A ghost! Nguy Tac shrieked and leaped onto the bed. The green light gathered into a tiny old man in a green robe, barely 3 inches tall. His hair was disheveled, his mouth sharp, his ears pointed. He smacked his lips hungrily at Nguy Tac. Quickly, bring me blood to drink. Seeing Nguy Tac so frightened, he looked ready to wet himself. The green-robed old man floated above the cracked jar with a contemptuous expression and barked, "Ghost, my ass! You can't even tell a ghost from an artifact spirit, yet you keep screaming ghost! Artie, artifact spirit, boss artifact spirit. For the last 2 years, this little brother has often visited Willow Shade Alley. Do you know what Willow Shade Alley is? It's a brothel. So I may have caught a few things, and my blood probably isn't very good to drink. Who wants your blood? Hurry up and get me some Fire Earth Dragon blood. Though judging by the look of you, you obviously don't have any. Fire Scorpion blood will do for now." The green-robed old man cursed impatiently. "Boss artifact spirit, you're not drinking my blood?" Nguy Tac slowly lowered the blanket from over his head. "Can I ask boss one question? What? Do you know how to cast spells? This little brother knows a place with lots of Fire Earth Dragons. I can take boss there. You can kill them and drink as much as you want. If I knew how to cast spells, why would I waste so much breath talking to you? Wouldn't it be easier to beat you up first and then go catch them myself? So boss can't possess someone's body either? Enough nonsense. I only know how to help my master control the artifact spirit of the ghost nurturing jar. Now that the ghost nurturing jar is damaged, what else can I do? Hey, what are you doing?" The green-robed old man suddenly shrieked. Nguy Tac jumped off the bed and began undoing his belt. Psst. He aimed straight at the stunned old man, relieved himself over him, then calmly tied his belt again. "If you can't do anything, why are you still putting on airs? I don't have Fire Earth Dragon blood, but I do have urine." The green-robed old man stared blankly for a long moment before roaring in disbelief. "You dared piss on me? You actually dared piss on me? What are you going to do about it? Bite me? Go on, try. Do you know how formidable I am? Other people would cry and beg the moment they saw me, and you dare piss on me? What nonsense. You can't even cast a spell. That stupid jar you're tied to is cracked. You can't do anything, yet you still want to scare me? Do I look that easy to frighten? Go ask around. When I was 13, I already dared sneak peeks at beautiful women bathing." Nguy Tac shot him a contemptuous glance. From the look of it, the old man couldn't even move far from the cracked jar. "Of all the ignorant people I've ever met, not one has been as ignorant as you." The green-robed old man was so angry he nearly went mad. The ghost nurture jar itself was never some overwhelmingly powerful treasure. I am the valuable one. Do you have any idea how many things I've seen and learned over tens of thousands of years? 20,000 years ago, countless people fought over me. You. Wait, green-haired old man, what did you say? Tens of thousands of years? That's right. It has been tens of thousands of years since my first master refined me. Understand how impressive I am now? Really? Nguy Tac glanced at the paintings of beautiful women hanging beside his bed. Green-haired old man, hurry up and tell me. Where the beauties from tens of thousands of years ago as pretty as these? And what were your dual cultivation techniques like? You idiot! The green-robed old man finally exploded completely. Do you know what matters most in the cultivation world? Experience. I've gone through so many generations of masters. Do you know how much experience I've accumulated? You. That's true. Nguy Tac's eyes lit up. Green-haired old man, that means you know a lot of cultivation techniques. Hurry up and teach me a few. They don't have to be too powerful. I probably couldn't learn anything too profound anyway. Something just a little better than Heavenly Tao sect's true interpretation of the Heavenly Tao will do. That, I don't actually know any cultivation techniques. The green-robed old man went blank. I can't cultivate them myself, and you can't tell how a cultivation technique works just by looking at it. How would I? No. You don't even know cultivation techniques, and you still have the nerve to say experience is the most important thing in the cultivation world. I know many methods for alchemy, talisman crafting, and artifact refining. The green-robed old man was almost driven to tears. Really? Nguy Tac's eyes lit up again. Alchemy and artifact refining arts were closely guarded secrets of the great sects. There were only a handful of alchemists and artifact refiners in all of Spirit Peak City. If this old man truly knew many pill formulas and refining methods, Nguy Tac might really have struck it rich this time. Give me any formula. Let me see if you really have any ability. After being cheated out of 13 low-grade spirit stones by that country bumpkin, Nguy Tac was practically destitute, so he immediately spoke with shining eyes. The green-robed old man gritted his teeth inwardly. Just wait until I give you a formula. Then you'll obediently beg me for help, and I'll be able to drink whatever I want. Judging by Nguy Tac's intelligence, anything too complicated or profound might go over his head, so the old man chose the simplest formula he knew. Key recovery powder, little dew grass, 3-night flower, and fire chrysanthemum root. Mix them in a ratio of 3:3:4. It's very easy to refine. Green-haired old man, how long have you actually been trapped inside this cracked jar? What? Ever since the 56th master of the ghost nurturing jar had it cracked by an enemy. I haven't been able to come out. If you hadn't broken the sealing runes while leaving the formation that supplies spiritual energy intact, I wouldn't have emerged today either. Let me think, at least 10 or 20,000 years, I suppose? Sorry, but if I remember correctly, Three-Night Flower went extinct 3,000 years ago. Nguy Tac spoke with an icy expression. What? That can't be. Fine, let me give you another one. A first-rank fireball talisman. Grind silver candlegrass and firetail flower into pulp to make talisman paper, then use fire scorpion blood as ink. The rune pattern goes like this. The rune pattern? I don't think that'll be necessary. Nguy Tac began undoing his belt again. What are you doing? The green-robed old man paled in terror. Don't tell me those things are extinct too? You damned green-haired old man. You're trying to trick me into getting fire scorpion blood for you to drink, aren't you? You'll recover your vitality after drinking it, then deal with me? You really are stupid. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. What are you talking about? Silver candlegrass may be a little rare, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with this formula. Back then, one of my masters discovered while refining this talisman that fire scorpion blood could also be used to nourish me. Keep pretending. Go ahead, keep pretending. Nguy Tac looked at the green-robed old man with a cold smile. Please turn around. The old man looked bewildered. Turn around? Yes. I only gave you a little shower earlier, and you already look so miserable. Looking at your face makes it hard for me to do it again. If the green-robed old man could have hanged himself, he would have done so long ago. What exactly are you trying to say? Even if you want to piss on me again, at least let me understand why. Fine, I'll tell you why. Nguy Tac looked at him as though he were an idiot and pushed open the window. The rain had stopped outside. The air was cool and fresh. Several stray cats ran across an open patch of ground, while countless silvery white weeds swayed in the wind. You said silver candlegrass was rare? Nguy Tac stared solemnly at the old man. Green-haired old ghost, your acting is pretty good. Did the bumpkin who cheated me today learn from you? That can't be. The green-robed old man's mouth fell open wide enough to swallow an egg. The silvery white grass growing outside, every blade shaped like a little awl. What else could it be but silver candlegrass? Old ghost, of the three materials you mentioned, only fire scorpions are slightly troublesome to find. The other two grow all over the streets. If these three worthless things can really make a fire talisman, then I suppose I can buy rotten eggs and hatch hens from them too. Come on, turn around. I understand now. Wahahaha! The green-robed old man froze for a moment, then suddenly burst into wild laughter. Did getting pissed on the head make you stupid? Nguy Tac asked in surprise. I couldn't avoid becoming extraordinary even if I wanted to. The old man puffed out his chest. I understand now. Three-Night Flower went extinct 3,000 years ago. Silver candlegrass was extremely rare 10,000 years ago, but now it grows everywhere. So much time has passed that everything has changed. Does iron thread grass still exist? What about crystal fruit? Are they common or rare? Fire earth dragons haven't gone extinct either, have they? Are there many? Plenty! Tons of them! Nguy Tac rolled his eyes. You still don't understand, the green-robed old man said quickly, no longer acting insane. Are the cultivation techniques of tens of thousands of years ago the same as the ones used now? Of course not. Seas become mulberry fields. The world changes with time. Cultivation techniques and alchemical methods have changed enormously over the ages. Tens of thousands of years ago, cultivators mainly relied on natural spiritual veins to cultivate. Later generations mostly relied on spirit medicines and demonic beast cores. I obtained this formula from a small sect back then. It was almost useless at the time because silver candle grass and firetail flower were so rare, but now both of them grow everywhere. Green-haired old man, are you still acting? You mean this formula is real? Of course it's real. That means an artifact spirit like me, something that was originally almost useless, has by sheer coincidence reached the greatest era of my existence. I will leave my name in history. I will become a legend of the cultivation world. Ah, you? The green-robed old man threw both arms into the air, overflowing with excitement and heroic grandeur. Before he could finish, another stream of urine came pouring down over his head. I really couldn't hold it anymore. Nguy Tac shook his head and calmly tied his belt. Big brother, what do I have to do to make Big brother believe me? The green-robed old man was completely speechless. My formula is real. If you don't believe me, try it. If I'm lying, Big brother can throw me into a cesspit and leave me there for 10,000 years. Take a look. Authentic 5 poison talismans from the true 5 poison sect. Usable from the first level of the Divine Sea realm. Simple, fast, and perfect for travel murder and silencing witnesses made easy. High-quality key recovery pills, only 2 left. Low price, don't miss your chance. Buying fragments of magical treasures of every kind. Fair prices, no cheating. Selling great wilderness maps. Shortcut to Wildfowl Mountain, 100% guaranteed safe. Buying bluestone fish bones. Bluestone fish bones. Goods in one hand, spirit stones in the other. Selling my family's secret true essence cultivation method with great reluctance. Buy now. Buy now. Forming a party for Ghost Tomb to hunt stone corpse beasts. Don't bother us unless you're at least 3rd level Divine Sea Realm. On the open ground outside the eastern gate of Spirit Peak City, everyone was shouting themselves hoarse. What the hell are bluestone fish bones even good for? What idiot would buy those? A burly man holding twin axes and sporting thick eyebrows spoke with open contempt. That's not even the stupidest thing, said a thin man with shifty eyes. I heard someone recently found a talisman formula that can use bluestone fish bones to refine water arrow talismans. The power is terrible. Not even good enough to count as a true first-rank talisman, maybe half-rank at best, but at least it has some use. The stupidest thing I ever foresaw was someone buying fire scorpions last time. Monkey, what kind of joke is that? Someone actually buys fire scorpions? Buying fresh fire scorpion corpses. They have to be fresh. Smelly or preserved ones won't do. Before the thick-browed man could answer, another voice rang out nearby. No way. The burly man froze. There's really someone that stupid? Green-haired old man? You're sure you're not cheating me? At sunset, back inside the little stone house, Nguy Tac looked painfully at 6 fire scorpion corpses piled in front of him. If you're lying, I swear I'll throw you into a cesspit. The person everyone at the small morning market outside Spirit Peak City's eastern gate had called the #1 invincible super idiot was, naturally, him. And there was a reason they thought so. Fire scorpions were only low-level first-rank demonic beasts. Apart from the stinger, which could be used to refine a few things, the rest of the body was basically worthless. They were also scattered rather than living in large groups, making them troublesome to hunt in quantity. Almost no one specifically hunted fire scorpions for sale. At most, cultivators killed one if they happened to cross it while hunting something else. Normally, nobody wanted the creatures, because the market didn't always have them available. Their price was actually a little higher than their value would suggest. It was like the brothels in Willow Shade Alley. Beautiful girls were easy to find, but a woman 3 feet tall and 3 feet around the waist was another matter. If someone had a particularly unusual taste and insisted on finding a woman like that, the brothel could probably arrange it, but the price would be no lower than that of their most popular courtesan. Today, Nguy Tac had spent an entire low-grade spirit stone just to buy 6 fire scorpions. One low-grade spirit stone meant little to other people, but to someone as poor as Nguy Tac, it was no small amount. After spending it, he had only 1 low-grade spirit stone left in his pouch. Relax, trust me, there's no mistake. The green-robed old man stared at the 6 fire scorpions with eyes shining like stars, swallowing repeatedly. Can you let me drink a mouthful of fire scorpion blood first? I haven't tasted any in over 10,000 years. I'm exhausted. Dream on, tell me what to do first. If it works, I'll let you drink some. If it doesn't, you can drink from the cesspit instead. The green-robed old man was helpless before him. Fine, bring 1 fire scorpion over. Cut along the black line on its back. Be careful not to cut too deep. Oh, Nguy Tac carried one of the fire scorpions onto the stone table. It wasn't particularly large, but its dark body looked almost like a chunk of rock. On the way home, Nguy Tac had been too busy mourning his spirit stone to examine the creatures closely. Now that he looked carefully, he realized that fire scorpions differed from ordinary scorpions in more than size. Their entire bodies were bright red like blood cockles. Their tails were nearly as long as their bodies, shaped like small steel whips, and at the tip was a glowing red needle that radiated visible heat. Just as the green-robed old man had said, this fire scorpion, whose head had been smashed open, had a clear black line running across the largest crimson shell plate on its back. Mother of heaven, why is this thing so hard? Nguy Tac started with a kitchen knife, then switched to a butcher's cleaver, chopping and hacking for a long time before finally cutting through the crimson shell along the black line. The green-robed old man rolled his eyes. He had served more than 50 masters, yet he had never seen a pig-headed fool spend half a day just trying to cut open a fire scorpion shell. Still, he didn't dare say much. If he angered this pig, Nguy Tac might genuinely throw him into a cesspit, and then he could very well become the first artifact spirit in history to drown in one. See the red bone underneath? Take it out carefully. Don't break it. You don't need the blood? What's this bone for? Ordinary fire scorpion blood is useless. The marrow blood inside that bone is what matters. Put it in a gourd quickly. If it dries out, it's ruined. Fine, green-haired old man, what next? Grind silver candlegrass and firetail flower into liquid. Mix them in a 3:7 ratio. Heat it for 1 incense stick, then pour it into a talisman mold that has already been heated red hot. That will make talisman paper. Nguy Tac ground the silver candlegrass and firetail flower into liquid, then followed the old man's instructions and measured them into a container at a 3:7 ratio. Ugh, why does it smell this bad? Green-haired old man, are you deliberately tricking me? The two liquids had originally been silver and bright red, both without any particular smell. But after boiling for one incense stick, bubbles rose through the mixture and it thickened into a vivid red paste that reeked like rotten salted fish. That smell is correct. You can take it out and make talisman paper now. Once the paper is finished, the odor will disappear. The green-robed old man nodded with certainty. Half believing him, Nguy Tac pulled out a black talisman mold, roughly square in all dimensions. He had acquired it by accident. It was nothing valuable, and since he didn't know how to craft talismans, it had spent most of its life under his bed. Now it finally had a use. Clumsy hands. A perfect prodigal. Seeing Nguy Tac pour so much mixture into the mold that it overflowed, the old man's heart ached. Then he remembered that both ingredients now grew everywhere, and fell silent again. The mold pressed down. After another brief heating over the flame, a rectangular sheet of bright red talisman paper was nearly finished. Boom! The little stone house suddenly erupted in firelight. You damned green-haired old man! Explain yourself! Why did this thing suddenly explode? Nguy Tac roared with a soot-blackened face and singed hair. Don't tell me you've never made talismans before? The green-robed old man stared blankly. Never, so what? You've never done it, and you dared start like that? The old man looked petrified. You looked so confident that I thought you were an experienced talisman craftsman. Who would have guessed you were a complete beginner who knows nothing? The patterns drawn on talismans correspond to the natural energies of heaven and earth. Every rune diagram is a miniature formation. The slightest flaw in the talisman paper, or a single line drawn too thick, can ruin the entire thing. Did you think you could just draw something vaguely similar and produce a talisman? Do you think talisman crafting and artifact refining are that easy? You didn't just invent this formula, did you? The green-robed old man burst out laughing at Nguy Tac, but this time Nguy Tac didn't get angry. Instead, he became serious. Firetail flower only had the word fire in its name because it resembled a bright red foxtail. As for fire scorpions, although their stingers contained fire-baleful energy, there was no way such creatures could naturally produce the kind of flame that had just erupted. Obviously not. If I were making things up, go mix 3 ingredients with no fire-baleful energy whatsoever and see if they explode into flames for me. I told you from the beginning, the formula is 100% genuine. You're the one who refused to believe me. Damn it. If you're lying, you really will spend the rest of your life in a cesspit. Nguy Tac roared at the old man, but he had already decided to keep testing the formula. He was poor beyond belief. That prodigal beauty had thrown a first-rank fireball talisman at him. The fireball it produced was enormous. Forget taking a direct hit, even getting licked by the edge of the flames would hurt like hell. A first-rank fireball talisman was at least as powerful as the fireball spell of a 5th-level Divine Sea Realm Cultivator. More importantly, activating a first-rank talisman consumed very little true essence. Nguy Tac currently cultivated the purple mystic true art, and the only offensive spell he knew was the Azure Waterblade. At the 2nd level of the Divine Sea Realm, even if he continuously released Azure Waterblades, he could only manage a little over 20 before his true essence ran dry. But if he used the same kind of first-rank fireball talisman as that prodigal beauty, even his current cultivation would let him activate 100 without much trouble. That was why talismans that consumed little true essence sold so well. Any ordinary cultivator with enough spirit stones would keep a few on hand to save their life. The problem was that first-rank talismans usually cost around half a low-grade spirit stone each. Aside from a few defensive talismans he had bought for emergencies, Nguy Tac had never been able to afford offensive ones. Instead, he used explosive flame pearls, which were only half as powerful as a fireball talisman, but cost just 1/3 as much. If 3 such ordinary materials could truly be turned into first-rank fireball talismans, then to Nguy Tac this formula was no different from a hen that laid spirit stones. Brat, can you stop wasting fire scorpion blood? The green-robed old man complained. I told you already. Even an experienced talisman craftsman needs 10 days to half a month of practice before mastering a new talisman. You've only been practicing 7 days and you already expect to make a fireball talisman? Keep dreaming. Instead of wasting the blood, you might as well give it to me. Stop nagging. If you don't shut up and I fail because of you, I'll piss on your head again. Inside the little stone house, Nguy Tac drew a deep breath. His expression turned solemn as he lowered a blue talisman brush into a jar filled with fire scorpion marrow blood until the brush tip was completely saturated. After his first failed attempt, he had practiced continuously for 7 days. He carefully recalled every stroke of the fireball talisman's rune pattern, dipped the brush until it was full, and looked down at the sheet of talisman paper before him. refined from silver candle grass and firetail flower. Beginners normally practiced on rune boards first. A rune board was a wooden tablet with a talisman pattern carved into it. By tracing the grooves again and again, a novice learned how deep or light each stroke should be before moving on to real talisman paper. That greatly improved the chance of success. There was another reason as well. Talisman paper was expensive, and ordinary cultivators could hardly afford to waste real sheets for practice. But silver candle grass and firetail flower now grew all over Spirit Peak City, so Nguy Tac simply practiced directly on actual talisman paper with fire scorpion blood. Through this method, he has discovered that the quality of the paper had a huge influence on whether the talisman would succeed. Even a tiny flaw, or a section that was slightly thicker than the rest, could cause the brush to drag and ruin the entire first-rank fireball talisman. Over those 7 days, Nguy Tac had also worked hard at refining talisman paper. The sheets he made now were much smoother than those from a week earlier. The one before him was the best from his recent batches, glossy as a mirror and faintly luminous. He lowered the brush without hesitation. Thin red lines spread swiftly beneath the tip. The fire scorpion blood was dark crimson in the jar, but the moment it soaked into the talisman paper, it turned fiery red and gleamed like polished jade. Beads of sweat gathered across Nguy Tac's forehead, yet his eyes remained intensely focused. Every movement was delicate and precise. Less than half an incense stick later, he completed the final stroke. The instant the last rune was finished, the entire fiery red pattern lit up at once. A hazy crimson glow spread across the paper, and waves of heat began rising from it. Did it work? The little stone house fell silent. Nguy Tac stared blankly at the talisman in front of him. The green-robed old man was equally wide-eyed with disbelief. The paper itself was bright red. Darker crimson patterns pulsed with threads of heat, while faint light flowed along the runes like flickering flame. Warmth continuously radiated from the talisman. No matter how one looked at it, this first-rank fireball talisman appeared flawless. You truly never crafted a talisman before? After staring for a long moment, the green-robed old man looked at Nguy Tac. Never. Nguy Tac still seemed dazed. He shook his head. Before this, the only thing I ever painted were patterns on ordinary white ferrets, so I could pretend they were black-winged marten and sell them. The green-robed old man's expression became complicated. What had just happened proved that the brat had not gotten lucky by accident. The old man knew very well that a cultivator with no talisman crafting experience usually needed at least 1 or 2 months of practice before successfully refining a first-rank fireball talisman. Nguy Tac had done it in 7 days. That meant he possessed exceptional talent in this field. And with tens of thousands of years of experience behind him, the green-robed old man understood better than anyone what that kind of talent could mean in the current era. Were your parents talisman craftsmen? Artifact refiners? He blurted out. I don't know. When I was 13, my parents went out with a group to hunt demonic beasts and never came back. All they left me was this purple mystic true art. Nguy Tac looked at him strangely. Why are you asking? Go test this talisman first. See whether it really is the first-rank fireball talisman I described. The green-robed old man looked at him. We'll talk about the rest after you come back. Nguy Tac tucked the freshly made talisman into his robe and headed toward the western gate of Spirit Peak City. Spirit Peak City was currently governed by Heavenly Unity sect. Any independent cultivator could live inside the city as long as they paid a fixed amount of spirit stones. Some ordinary mortals earned residence rights by working for various sects. A shabby stone house like Nguy Tac's, with almost no furnishings at all, cost 2 low-grade spirit stones per month. If he went 2 months without paying rent, he would be thrown out of the city. They called it rent, but in truth it was protection money. Even so, the independent cultivators in Spirit Peak City had few complaints. Every day, Heavenly Unity sect sent many skilled cultivators to patrol the city and maintain security. Over the past year, the number of demonic beasts outside the city had increased dramatically. 5 years ago, for example, there would never have been a second-rank beast like a stone-tailed wall lizard, appearing in Yellow Sand Gorge, only a few mountains away. Living outside the city meant facing not only demonic beasts, but also other independent cultivators willing to kill and rob for profit. So any low-level cultivator who could afford the rent usually paid in advance and stayed within the walls. The only real inconvenience was that flying and private combat were both forbidden inside the city. Nguy Tac did not know any flying technique anyway. Even if he learned one, his current true essence probably wouldn't keep him airborne for half an incense stick. Testing a talisman technically did not count as unauthorized combat, but to avoid trouble with Heavenly Unity sect, he still chose to leave the city. Less than half a li beyond the gate, he spotted a black stray cat beside an abandoned house. The cat had its head tilted back and was yowling itself hoarse, apparently calling for a mate. When Nguy Tac stopped nearby, it bared its teeth as if telling him to get lost and stop interfering with its courtship. Nguy Tac's eyes rolled mischievously. He raised his hand. Boom! A streak of fire slammed into a nearby tree and blasted away half the trunk. Flames roared upward. Meow! The stray cat nearly fell over in terror. Every hair on its body stood on end as it sprang away as though riding the wind, leaping from a tree branch to a distant wall and trembling violently. Huh? What? The cat wasn't the only one startled. Nguy Tac himself was shocked. When the fireball talisman activated, the heat it released made even his own skin sting. Its power seemed stronger than the talisman used by that curvy, silver-robed beauty. Damn, that was incredible! Far down the road leading back towards Spirit Peak City, two passing cultivators witnessed the scene and froze. He used a first-rank fireball talisman just to scare a stray cat? Is there no justice in this world? I'm rich! I'm really rich this time! Nguy Tac practically flew back to his house in the Western District. Thuy Ling Ni, maybe one day you really will become my wife. The moment the green-robed old man saw Nguy Tac charge into the room like that, he knew the fireball talisman had worked. But Nguy Tac's next action made the old man's skin crawl. As though he had just stumbled across a pile of spirit stones, Nguy Tac lovingly rubbed the chests of the beauties in the paintings beside his bed. At last, the green-robed old man understood why the same area on every painting had been stained a slightly different color. Right, green-haired old man. Nguy Tac seemed to remember something. You said you had something to tell me after I tested the fireball talisman. What was it? What I wanted to say is that it's too early to celebrate. The green-robed old man gave him a serious look. Whether it's talisman crafting, alchemy, or artifact refining, the most important thing is the success rate. A talisman craftsman with less than a 20% success rate is considered useless. The materials they waste cost more than the talismans they produce. Nguy Tac blinked. Old man, you mean I need to find out what my success rate is? What do you think? The old man replied coldly. Nguy Tac immediately became serious again and stood before the table. This concerned his grand plan to become rich. He had to be careful. The first sheet failed when one rune went slightly crooked. The talisman burst into flames. Fortunately, Nguy Tac had already experienced something similar and managed to avoid being burned. The second sheet was fully drawn, but for some unknown reason it produced no heat at all. The third finally succeeded. By the time Nguy Tac successfully refined his sixth first-rank fireball talisman, his entire body was drenched in sweat. He collapsed over the table, too exhausted to move even a finger. The remaining fire scorpion blood had been enough for 14 attempts. 8 had failed, 6 had succeeded. The entire process took more than an hour, giving him a success rate just under 50%. Talisman crafting demanded extreme concentration. It exhausted not only the body but the mind as well. Seeing that fewer than half of his attempts had succeeded, while he himself was nearly dead from exhaustion, Nguy Tac felt somewhat discouraged. But the green-robed old man was silently calculating. Nguy Tac had no idea that even a professional talisman craftsman, who was thoroughly familiar with a particular first-rank talisman, usually achieved only around a 60% success rate. With an unfamiliar first-rank talisman, many could not even reach 40%. Nguy Tac was already close to 50%. And this was his first successful day of talisman crafting. What would his success rate become later? Brat, are you dead yet? After thinking for a while, the green-robed old man suddenly spoke. If you're still alive, let's talk. You tell me a few things, and I'll tell you a few things in return. What do you want to talk about? Nguy Tac answered weakly. If the old man hadn't proven that he really possessed some ability, Nguy Tac would have been too tired to even open his mouth. The old man looked at him. Every other word out of your mouth is spirit stone. Spirit stone. What exactly is a spirit stone? A spirit stone is a type of crystal that contains spiritual energy. Cultivators can absorb that energy directly for cultivation. Much like refining a demonic beast core, except the energy inside a spirit stone is relatively pure. Unlike beast cores, it doesn't need to be refined into pills first. Spirit stones are also the currency of the cultivation world now. They're divided into 3 grades. High grade contains the most spiritual energy, low grade the least. What? Spirit stones didn't exist in your era? Nguy Tac asked suspiciously. So something like spirit stones was discovered later? The green-robed old man nodded. Why not? Many things existed tens of thousands of years ago that no longer exist now. Likewise, things that exist now may not have existed 10 or 20,000 years ago. You don't even have to look that far back. I'm certain today's cultivation techniques are different from those in use when my final master died over 10,000 years ago. He looked at Nguy Tac as if staring at a bumpkin. If you don't believe me, tell me what cultivation techniques are like now. How are they classified? There are too many to count. By quality, they're divided into heaven, earth, profound, and yellow grades, 4 major grades with 12 sub-levels. Cultivation realms are divine sea, heavenly circuit, thought division, golden core, divine profundity, and true immortal. What was it like 10,000 years ago? Basically the same. And you said it was definitely different. Go farther back and it was. The old man snorted. Cultivation methods from tens of thousands of years ago usually specialized in a single type of elemental energy. Fire element spells had to be paired with fire element cultivation methods. Once you cultivated a fire method, you generally couldn't use other types of spells. Modern methods are different. As long as you possess enough true essence and magical power, you can use most kinds of spells. No way! Green-haired old ghost, are you making that up too? Making it up? You're hopelessly ignorant. Most modern cultivation methods ultimately originated from the art of one ancient supreme expert. That person's technique allowed the use of spells from any element. Do you think the celestial dome barrier surrounding the 7 continents was created by someone else? I think I've heard something like that. Nguy Tac recovered a little energy. Spirit Peak City was only a tiny, remote city on the edge of the heavenly profound continent. The nearest continent was said to be the Cloud Spirit continent. Between the two stretched an immense wilderness, and only the largest cities possessed teleportation formations linking one continent to another. Nguy Tac had never visited those major cities, but because Spirit Peak City stood near the edge of the heavenly profound continent, he could see the celestial dome barrier without spending any money. He had once gone specifically to admire it. It was a vast wall of white light enclosing the entire continent. The naked eye could not see how high it reached. It seemed to connect directly with the heavens. According to legend, even a golden core realm cultivator had once flown upward without finding its end, which meant its height far exceeded the reach of ordinary golden core experts. The strangest part was that the barrier was harmless to cultivators. Passing through it felt no different from walking through a curtain of water. But demonic beasts from outside the continent were repelled the instant they touched it. Whatever force they struck it with would be reflected back upon them. The wild wasteland beyond was filled with an astonishing number of demonic beasts. Without the celestial dome barrier blocking them, the cultivators of the continent might not have been able to survive at all. Over the last tens of thousands of years, however, cracks had reportedly appeared in several sections of the barrier. Powerful beasts that forced their way through were usually hunted down by the great powers, and major cracks were guarded once discovered. But countless beasts below the 4th rank, whose magical fluctuations were weaker, had already slipped through and multiplied throughout the continent. As a result, many areas outside the cities of the heavenly profound continent now contained no shortage of demonic beasts. According to legend, the celestial dome barrier surrounding the 7 continents had been created by an ancient supreme expert with heaven-shaking magical power. Nguy Tac knew little beyond that. "Since you know so little, I'll tell you more," said the green-robed old man. In the earliest ages of cultivation, spiritual veins existed everywhere. Most cultivators simply absorbed spiritual energy directly from those natural veins, and the world didn't have nearly so many demonic beasts. Later, a terrifying enemy fought that supreme expert. Their battle shattered mountains and split the earth. The world was divided into 7 continents, countless stars fell from the heavens, and spatial rifts opened everywhere. Nearly all natural spiritual veins were destroyed. That supreme expert did not want the entire world to fall into the hands of demonic beasts, so he used his heaven-shaking power to surround the 7 continents with 9 celestial dome barriers. Only after that did later spell systems and cultivation methods gradually develop, shifting toward reliance on spiritual medicines and demonic beast cores. The green-robed old man paused, then suddenly seemed to remember something. "Right. What grade is your cultivation method, and what realm are you at?" Nguy Tac looked slightly embarrassed. "The purple mystic true art I cultivate is a low-grade profound tier method. I've only reached the 2nd level of the divine sea realm." The green-robed old man did not seem surprised. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Tell me about the spiritual herbs and demonic beasts that are common nowadays. List as many as you can, including things you consider useless." Common demonic beasts include red-scaled poison snakes, 5-colored centipedes, black fire rock turtles, crimson oigen armored beetles. Common spiritual plants include little mist grass, iron thread grass, crystal fruit. Nguy Tac spent more than half an hour thinking and talking before he had roughly listed everything he knew. Fortunately, he had spent his entire cultivation life poor. Anything with even a little value had been engraved into his memory, and whenever he went outside searching for materials, he paid close attention. As a result, he knew quite a lot. If it had been that curvy little prodigal beauty, she probably wouldn't have been able to name even a dozen. "Who is this woman?" After listening, the green-robed old man suddenly pointed at the beauty in the painting on the wall. "Huh? Green-haired old man, is that all you've got? Why are you asking about her?" Nguy Tac had been waiting for something valuable and immediately looked disappointed. Answer my last question first. There will naturally be benefits for you. That's the female disciple of Deep Huyan Tan, master of Profound Wind sect. Her cultivation is extremely powerful, she's beautiful, and countless men want to marry her. Plenty of people have joined Profound Wind sect just because they saw her portrait. Satisfied? Nguy Tac looked at him. Now tell me, what benefit do I get? Let's make a deal. The green-robed old man narrowed his eyes. You help me condense a body, and I'll help you cultivate. I won't dare promise too much, but I can help you reach the Golden Core realm. Maybe you'll even have a chance to win this Thuy Linj Ni. The Golden Core realm? Nguy Tac swallowed hard. Green-haired old man, what do you mean by condense a body? True essence was the foundation that allowed cultivators to drive spells and magical treasures. Cultivation methods were divided into heaven, earth, profound, and yellow tiers according to quality. Cultivation itself was divided into the divine sea, heavenly circuit, thought division, golden core, divine profundity, and true immortal realms, each realm further separated into 5 levels. Nguy Tac's purple mystic true art was hardly a powerful cultivation method, and he was only at the 2nd level of the divine sea realm. At his current speed, there was little hope he would ever reach the golden core realm in his lifetime. If the green-robed old man could truly help him reach Golden Core, then as long as the old man's conditions were even remotely possible, Nguy Tac would risk his life to fulfill them. For an artifact spirit like me, the physical vessel of the magical treasure is our body. If the ghost-nurturing jar had remained intact, I could have survived tens of thousands more years without issue. But now the vessel is badly damaged, and the spiritual energy in several formations is leaking away. Unless something unexpected happens, in a few hundred years the treasure will lose all its spiritual energy. When that happens, my essence will no longer be nourished and I'll disappear completely. Condensing a body means using certain special materials to create a new body for me. A new body? That's right. I want fire scorpion blood and fire earth dragon blood. I don't know whether my first master used some special material when creating me, but the blood of those 2 creatures can nourish my essence. If I drink enough fire scorpion blood, my spiritual consciousness can leave this cracked jar and travel farther away, though no more than 10 li at most. The green-robed old man looked at Nguy Tac. My greatest wish is simply to be able to go outside freely and see the world. Without a body, I can't truly leave this jar. It's no different from prison. That does sound pretty miserable. Nguy Tac knew that artifact spirits like this old man were created by refiners to help control magical treasures. In other words, they were essentially servants, serving one master after another for tens of thousands of years, then being trapped even after the master died, sometimes sealed away for 10,000 years at a time. It really was a wretched existence. Nodding sympathetically, Nguy Tac continued, Do you know how I'm supposed to help you condense this body? What materials do you need? You're not asking for one of my arms or legs, are you? Look, by now the green-robed old man had realized that Nguy Tac was extremely shrewd and refused to suffer any loss. He moved both hands rapidly, and glowing characters appeared in the air, similar to the runes he had shown Nguy Tac for the fireball talisman. 5-colored stone, moon immortal grass, golden crow fruit. 3rd level golden core realm? Nguy Tac studied the list, then immediately jumped up. Very nice green-haired old man. You said you'd help me cultivate to the golden core realm, but it turns out that even after collecting all these materials, I'll need at least 3rd level golden core true essence before I can perform the body condensing art for you. Are you accepting the deal or not? The old man rolled his eyes. Of course I am. Only an idiot would refuse. Nguy Tac chuckled. I can gather the materials along the way while cultivating. But green-haired old man, if some of these materials don't exist anymore, don't blame me. You don't need to worry about that. The old man nodded with confidence. If they can't be found on the heavenly profound continent, I know one place where they definitely exist. Then we have a deal. Nguy Tac looked at the green-robed old man. The more he looked now, the more lovable the old fellow seemed. Right, green-haired old man? We hit it off the moment we met and we've talked so much, yet I still don't know your name. Mine is Nguy Tac. Hit it off the moment we met, my ass. The old man cursed inwardly. He snorted. A name doesn't matter. Call me whatever you like. Fine. How about Greenie? Or Little Greenie? You can keep calling me green-haired old man. That's a little awkward. I'll just call you old man. Nguy Tac collapsed weakly onto the bed. Continuous talisman crafting had drained both his body and mind. Old man, now that we've made our deal, what do I do next? What do you do? The green-robed old man gave him a contemptuous look. Seeing how excited you got over a few fireball talismans, I can already tell how poor you are. First, find a way to refine more fireball talismans and earn enough spirit stones to support daily cultivation. Then we can talk about other things. Nguy Tac flushed. Old man, don't you have any good stuff you can lend me for now? Sorry, nothing at the moment. Ask again once you reach the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm. The green-robed old man shook his head without mercy. However, I do know a method for attracting fire scorpions. Really? Nguy Tac's eyes lit up once more. Vivi, who upset you? Why do you look so unhappy? Kona smiled and beckoned when she saw Han Vivi enter the private alchemy chamber with a sulky expression. Han Vivi pursed her lips, walked straight over, sat on Kona's lap, and wrapped her arms around her neck. If Nguy Tac had seen this scene, his eyes probably would have fallen out of his head. Kona wore a violet palace gown, her hair casually pinned with a single jade hairpin. She was the owner of Treasure Pavilion in Spirit Peak City. Treasure Pavilion was not the largest business in the city, but it was certainly among the most profitable. The reason was simple. Kona was one of the very few alchemists in Spirit Peak City. Roughly 1/3 of the pills sold in the city came from Treasure Pavilion. More importantly, she was also famous as an ice-cold beauty. Every day, all kinds of people looked for excuses to conduct business with Treasure Pavilion, when in truth many of them simply wanted to catch a glimpse of the unforgettable face of its owner. Kona's figure, especially the two snow-white peaks beneath her robes, was enough to drive most women mad with envy. Yet no matter which man stood before her, even talented young disciples from sects such as Heavenly Unity sect, she remained cold and distant. And the colder she was, the more cultivators became obsessed with her. Now this famous ice beauty had someone sitting directly on her lap with arms around her neck. That someone was none other than the curvy silver-robed little beauty Nguy Tac had encountered in Yellow Sand Gorge. Senior sister, I'm furious! Han Vivi sat on the jade-like legs that countless cultivators dreamed about and ground her teeth. 2 days ago, at Yellow Sand Gorge, I finally managed to kill 2 stone-tailed wall lizards. But then I ran into a shameless bastard. He stole both of them and ran away. I searched around Yellow Sand Gorge for days and still couldn't find him. You went to Yellow Sand Gorge? Kona's expression changed. Haven't you been in the alchemy room refining jade purity pills these past few days? Senior sister, I already told you. I don't like all those bottles and jars. Staring at a furnace for hours is unbearably boring. Besides, you said once I reached the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm, I could go hunt demonic beasts. Han Vivi blushed slightly. A white night pearl embedded in the wall of Kona's chamber gave off soft light, making Han Vivi's face look even more alluring. Some beauties were ordinary if you looked at each feature separately, yet stunning when everything came together. Han Vivi was different. Her eyes, nose, and lips were each beautiful on their own, and together they created an even more delicate charm. No wonder the moment Nguy Tac saw her in Yellow Sand Gorge, he had decided that her beauty and intelligence were inversely related. After listening, Kona smiled helplessly. Although she was now the owner of Treasure Pavilion, it had originally been passed down by her master, Han Fong Tu. Han Vivi was his only beloved daughter. Ever since Han Fong Tu died in an accident while refining pills, Kona had done everything she could for Han Vivi. Unfortunately, Han Vivi truly seemed to have inherited none of her father's talent for alchemy. Kona gently stroked her junior sister's glossy hair. It was only 2 stone-tailed wall lizards. Why didn't you tell me you were going out? What if something had happened? Nothing was going to happen. Senior sister, I'm very obedient. Until I reach the 5th level of the Heavenly Circuit Realm, I won't go beyond the Celestial Dome barrier. At most, I'll stay around Spirit Peak City. Han Vivi stuck out her tongue. Alright, starting tomorrow, I'll let you go out and hunt demonic beasts for experience. Kona looked at her warmly, as though she had already made up her mind. But you have to tell me before you leave. Ah, I knew senior sister treats me best. Han Vivi happily kissed Kona's smooth, cream-white cheek. I'm definitely going to teach that bastard a lesson. Kona smiled. Silly girl. 2 stone-tailed wall lizards are nothing. That's not the point. They were the first second-ranked demonic beasts I ever killed, and that coward had such low cultivation. Even if he wanted to rob me, he shouldn't have been able to take them. Han Vivi's pale face turned red again, and he even pretended his stomach hurt right in front of me. He acted like he was actually going to take off his pants. There are people like that? The corner of Kona's lips twitched. Exactly. Han Vivi nodded forcefully and stood up. Senior sister, I won't bother you anymore. I'm going back to cultivate. Tomorrow morning I'll visit the free market outside the city. Maybe I'll run into that bastard. Go on. Kona watched Han Vivi leave the chamber. Her junior sister truly did not enjoy alchemy, and Kona did not intend to force her. As long as Han Vivi was happy, that was enough. But the moment Han Vivi disappeared from view, Kona's expression returned to its usual frost. Dak Kovu Van. At her call, a black-robed man appeared at the doorway. Find someone from Iron Strategy Alliance and have them protect the young miss. Kona ordered coldly. Understood. The black-robed man nodded, said nothing more, and respectfully withdrew. There were 3 main places near Spirit Peak City where cultivators traded: the free market outside the Eastern Gate, the Northern Market District, and the high-end trading district in the south. The free market allowed cultivators to trade freely and was not directly managed by any authority. No fees were paid to Heavenly Unity sect there, and the variety of goods was enormous. Sometimes one could find a real treasure. Other times one bought an outright fake. The northern market consisted of several dozen small shops. None was particularly large. Most sold only basic materials for talisman crafting and alchemy, along with low-level talismans and artifacts. At least goods sold there were reliable, and counterfeits were rare. The strongest businesses in Spirit Peak City, such as Treasure Pavilion, were concentrated in the southern district. Apart from their specialty goods, they occasionally hosted auctions for items that low-level cultivators could do nothing but stare at and swallow their saliva over. Early the next morning, Nguy Tac arrived at the northern market. The ghost-nurturing jar containing the green-robed old man was currently stuffed beneath his bed. First, the ghost-nurturing jar was originally a yin-type magical treasure meant to nurture minor ghosts, and the green-robed old man could not manifest during daylight anyway. Carrying him around served no purpose. Second, Nguy Tac could afford to lose almost anything else, but if someone stole that jar, his future would be finished. For safety, he coated the outside of the ghost-nurturing jar in a thick layer of tree resin. Even a hard impact would no longer shatter it easily. Then he smeared black ash across the surface until it looked like an ordinary earthenware jar. Even if some low-life thief was pathetic enough to rob a dirt-poor independent cultivator like Nguy Tac, they would probably ignore a worthless jar shoved beneath the bed. Clearwater Residence is buying 7-star fish bones, 3 low-grade spirit stones each. Spell Candle Shop is selling water arrow talismans in bulk. Stone notice boards stood throughout the northern market, covered in advertisements and requests. They were extremely useful to low-level cultivators like Nguy Tac. Today, however, he ignored them and walked directly into a small shop called Carefree Shop. At the moment, no piece of information could earn him spirit stones faster than catching fire scorpions himself and refining fireball talismans. Nguy Tac could sometimes be impatient, but after surviving for years in Spirit Peak City without any background or powerful support, 2 things had kept him alive: a quick mind and an intense fear of dying. Whatever he did, he prepared carefully. Whenever he hunted demonic beasts, he made thorough preparations. Hunting fire scorpions would be no exception. Nguy Tac, you're here. The moment he entered, the owner of Carefree Shop noticed him and came forward with a hearty smile. Old Fox, Nguy Tac thought immediately. The shopkeeper was a man in his 50s surnamed Ho, always dressed in dark yellow robes. His fox-like face seemed warm and friendly toward everyone, but when it came to business, even acquaintances received no mercy. Nguy Tac had known him for years. Even the Azure Waterblade spell he used had been purchased here, yet he had never managed to gain even the slightest advantage over the old man in a transaction. That was why he privately called him the Old Fox. "Do you have Azure Fire Pills?" Nguy Tac asked directly, not bothering with pleasantries. "Azure Fire Pills? Of course." The Old Fox looked slightly surprised. "But what does little brother need one for? Someone has been paying good money for fire scorpions lately. I'm thinking of hunting a few to sell. Naturally, I need an Azure Fire Pill for protection. If one stings me and I get fire poison, that won't be a joke." Nguy Tac casually invented an excuse. "Someone is actually foolish enough to pay high prices for fire scorpions?" The Old Fox chuckled. "Well, with an Azure Fire Pill to counter the fire poison, you should be fine." He raised one finger. "We've known each other a long time. Little brother already knows the price. 1 low-grade spirit stone." Nguy Tac looked at him. 1 bottle of Chi Recovery Powder and 1 Wind Escape Talisman as well. "How much altogether?" 1 bottle of Chi Recovery Powder plus 1 Wind Escape Talisman is 1 low-grade spirit stone. Add the Azure Pill, the total is 2. Nguy Tac nodded immediately. 4 first-rank Fireball Talismans. "Deal? 4 first-rank Fireball Talismans?" The Old Fox froze for a moment, then quickly nodded. 4 are worth 2 low-grade spirit stones, of course. "Good." Nguy Tac pulled out 4 Fireball Talismans he had refined and handed them over. "This." The Old Fox studied the 4 bright red talismans radiating heat. "Nguy Tac, where did little brother get these first-rank Fireball Talismans? The rune pattern is rather unusual." All right. I know you won't complete the trade unless you test one first." Nguy Tac rolled his eyes and snatched 1 talisman back. "Look at that. We've known each other for years. How could this old man distrust little brother?" The Old Fox said with a smile. "I'm only afraid someone might have cheated you, so I wanted to make sure." Even while saying this, however, he was already turning around and leading Nguy Tac through the rear courtyard toward a small stone building. "I hope it blows up your rotten little house," Nguy Tac cursed inwardly. Standing in the doorway, he focused on the Fireball Talisman in his hand. A faint stream of violet energy rose from his palm, and the talisman began glowing red. Whoosh! The Fireball Talisman burst into flame, and a massive fireball instantly appeared above Nguy Tac's hand. The heat made his palm burn for an instant. But at the same time, he felt something strange. The first time he had activated a fireball talisman, he had been too excited to notice anything. This time he clearly sensed that the fireball was wrapped in a thin layer of his true essence, keeping every trace of flame tightly contained. Nguy Tac flicked his right hand toward the stone room. Whoosh! The fireball shot forward. In an instant it expanded to the size of a bonfire, tongues of flame streaming outward. Boom! The entire room was nearly swallowed by fire. One wall exploded into rubble, leaving behind a blackened hole. Damn! Once a fireball talisman was activated, the fireball had to be thrown quickly. Otherwise his true essence could no longer contain it, and it would explode directly in his hand. But by applying true essence to different parts of the fireball, he seemed able to control its trajectory through the air. Nguy Tac was still absorbed in that sensation when a tongue of flame rolled out from the damaged room and nearly licked across his body. The quality of this first-rank fireball talisman is quite good. The old fox smiled at the flames and tucked the remaining 3 talismans into his sleeve. Nguy Tac deal. For the remaining fireball talisman, I'll give little brother 1 bottle of key recovery powder, 1 azure fire pill, and 1 wind escape talisman. Look! Look! Someone's leaving the city carrying a whole pile of tiger-striped grass and yellow hair mushrooms. Haha! Look at his hair. It looks like it got burned. What do you people know? What do you mean? It looks burned. Even if it really was burned, so what? Wait until I get rich and see if you can still laugh. Outside the northern gate of Spirit Peak City, Nguy Tac carried a bundle of tiger-striped grass and a sack of fuzzy yellow mushrooms while grumbling his way toward the mountains. He had been forced to waste 1 fireball talisman at the old fox's shop, but in exchange he had also learned that there were quite a few fire scorpions near an abandoned purple copper mine in Great Azure Mountain, about 300 li north of Spirit Peak City. The tiger-striped grass and yellow hair mushrooms he carried were, according to the green-robed old man, especially effective at attracting fire scorpions. These 2 plants were not quite as common as silver candlegrass and firetail flower, but cultivators considered them useless. That was why everyone who saw Nguy Tac carrying a whole bundle thought he was an idiot. Heavenly Unity Sect had built teleportation formations in many locations outside Spirit Peak City. Low-level cultivators without flying treasures often used them to reach distant places quickly, but even the shortest teleport cost at least 2 or 3 low-grade spirit stones per use. A pauper like Nguy Tac normally walked. After years of doing so, he could run at astonishing speed even without using any movement technique. By around noon, he reached the abandoned purple copper mine. The mine had once produced purple copper ore, but the deposit had been exhausted 60 years earlier. The excavation stretched 20 or 30 li deep, almost like a canyon. Waste rock lay piled everywhere, and countless mine tunnels opened into darkness. Since nothing else of value was produced here, Nguy Tac was the only person around. Including the supplies he had brought from home, he currently carried 2 bottles of chi recovery powder, 1 azure fire pill, 1 first-rank wind escape talisman, 2 first-rank fireball talismans, 1 low-grade spirit stone, and the earth shield treasure talisman with 1 use remaining. Green-haired old man, whether I get rich or not depends on you. After checking everything and confirming that nothing was missing, Nguy Tac jumped into an open area, gathered some dry wood, lit it with flint, then threw the tiger-striped grass and yellow hair mushrooms into the flames. A yellow-green smoke began rising, thick and pungent. Less than half an hour later, rustling came from the bushes ahead. A dark red fire scorpion crawled out. Wahahaha! It really works! The marrow blood from 1 fire scorpion was enough for 4 fireball talisman attempts. With a 50% success rate, that meant 2 successful talismans, worth 1 low-grade spirit stone. So in Nguy Tac's eyes, the creature was not a scorpion at all. It was a walking low-grade spirit stone. When he saw it moving, he felt as if his money was trying to run away. The moment the fire scorpion appeared, Nguy Tac's eyes lit up. He jumped off a rock and charged toward it. The poor creature had no idea what was happening before a human came rushing at it. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 precisely aimed azure water blades slashed into its head and cut half of it away. The first unlucky fire scorpion did not even have time to make a sound before curling up and dying. Haha! I'm getting rich! Nguy Tac had barely looked at his first victim when 2 more fire scorpions rushed excitedly toward the smoke, one behind the other. Don't run! Yes, I'm talking to you. Nguy Tac threw 2 more azure water blades and flipped 1 fire scorpion onto its back. Then, laughing wickedly, he walked toward the other. The second creature ignored him completely and hurried toward the fire, only to be cut down by another 2 azure water blades. Wah-ha-ha-ha-ha! The valley soon echoed with the laughter of a newly rich upstart. 1 fire scorpion after another crawled out from the trees and piles of stone. In only a few tea-brewing intervals, Nguy Tac had killed more than 10. The purple mystic true art truly was as poor as the green-robed old man said. At the second level of the Divine Sea Realm, after releasing a little over 20 azure water blades, Nguy Tac's true essence was nearly empty. He quickly tilted his head back and poured an entire bottle of key recovery powder into his mouth. Afterward, he happily continued slaughtering every fire scorpion that appeared. He still had one more bottle of key recovery powder, enough to help him kill at least another 30. Judging by the situation, the smoke from tiger-striped grass and yellow hair mushrooms held a fatal attraction for these creatures. Nguy Tac had already planned everything. Once he killed more than 30, and his true essence was nearly exhausted again, he would put out this fire and light another one somewhere else. Low-level demonic beasts like fire scorpions were too stupid to collect the corpses of their companions. He could always sneak back later and harvest the bodies. The more he killed, the smoother his movements became. Soon dead fire scorpions lay scattered everywhere, their number already exceeding 20. Smack! Smack! Nguy Tac had just stylishly tilted his head back and emptied his second bottle of chi recovery powder when, without even looking, he threw 2 azure water blades at another red creature emerging from the bushes. This time, however, the target did not fall. What the hell? Nguy Tac turned in surprise. The creature that had crawled out was indeed fiery red, but it was not a fire scorpion. It was a beetle with a round head, its entire body covered in rough bumps like chunks of stone. The beetle was twice the size of a fire scorpion. The 2 azure water blades had only chipped its armor slightly. Its 2 pitch-black eyes stared at Nguy Tac as if saying, "I am very angry, and the consequences will be serious." "No, no! It was a misunderstanding!" Nguy Tac stared for a moment, then cried out with a twisted expression. This beetle looked very familiar. It was a crimson-armored beetle, a low-tier second-rank demonic beast. It was slightly weaker than a stone-tailed wall lizard, and in a one-on-one fight Nguy Tac was confident he could kill it. The problem was that crimson-armored beetles never fought one-on-one. They always attacked in groups. Sure enough, just as Nguy Tac finished saying it was a misunderstanding, the beetle's body began vibrating with a buzzing sound. It seemed the creature had simply come to investigate why so many fire scorpions were gathering here, only to get slashed twice for no reason. "No way?" Scraping sounds echoed from several mine tunnels around him. A moment later, at least 20 or 30 crimson-armored beetles charged out from every direction and surrounded Nguy Tac like murderous demons. "Don't step on my spirit stones!" What made Nguy Tac want to cry most was seeing 2 crimson-armored beetles crawl directly over a fire scorpion corpse and flatten it into a pancake. There was no way the useful marrow bone inside would still be intact. Thud! Among the 20 or 30 crimson-armored beetles, one enormous specimen emerged from a tunnel. It was several times larger than the others, almost the size of an ox. No one knew how many years it had lived. Its shell was so thick that just looking at it made Nguy Tac's scalp go numb. "Big brother, this little brother didn't do it on purpose. Please don't crush my fire scorpion." The moment that giant crimson-armored beetle appeared, Nguy Tac abandoned the remaining tiger-striped grass and yellow hair mushrooms without even trying to retrieve them. He screamed, activated a fireball talisman, blasted away 2 beetles behind him, then immediately triggered his wind escape talisman. Hard wind wrapped around his body, and he fled the mine like a streak of smoke. Just as he turned away, he caught a glimpse of something strange on the back of the largest beetle. A thread of black light protruded from its shell like half of a tiny black arrow. Crimson-armored beetles had 8 legs and could normally run about as fast as Nguy Tac, but with the wind escape talisman doubling his speed, the swarm could no longer match him. Even so, they pursued him relentlessly. Nguy Tac had to run more than 10 li before he finally escaped being surrounded and beaten to death. By his estimate, more than 100 crimson-armored beetles had joined the chase by the end. The furious swarm thundered behind him, making the ground tremble faintly beneath their numbers. The abandoned copper mine had always seemed quiet. Nguy Tac had never imagined so many crimson-armored beetles were hiding beneath it. Judging by how they had erupted from different tunnels and attacked like a swarm of hornets, the underground shafts that had once been disconnected had probably been carved open by their 8 blade-like legs. Unable to catch Nguy Tac, the enraged beetles rampaged around the mine for a long time. More than an hour passed before the place finally became quiet again. "My fire scorpion, my spirit stones." Nguy Tac waited outside the mine, thinking about the fire scorpion corpses being crushed under beetle legs. He truly wanted to cry. With a swarm like that tearing through the area, the fire scorpions were probably smashed beyond use. It looked as if he might not even recover his costs. Only after the mine had been completely silent for a while did he cautiously sneak back inside. No way! Nguy Tac had originally thought he would be thanking heaven if the crimson-armored beetles left him even a few usable fire scorpion corpses. But the moment he reached the smoking remains of the fire, his eyes widened. He began counting. A fair number of fire scorpions had indeed been crushed badly, their legs and bodies flattened. But there were even more whose heads had been smashed, while the rest of their bodies remained intact. A little over 20 had been completely destroyed, but there were at least 80 relatively intact corpses. Brothers of the Crimson Armored Beetles, I never imagined you would repay hatred with virtue and conquer people through kindness. I'm rich this time. After standing stunned for a moment, Nguy Tac finally realized what had happened and nearly burst into tears of joy. After he fled, the fire had continued burning. More fire scorpions had kept crawling out toward the smoke, while the beetles, unable to catch Nguy Tac, had vented all their anger on them instead. So for the past hour, the beetles had not been rampaging aimlessly through the valley at all. They had been massacring fire scorpions for him. More than half an hour later, Nguy Tac was still floating in bliss. After gaining experience from processing the first few fire scorpions, he could now split the back shell almost effortlessly, remove the useful red bone, and place it into a beast hide pouch he had prepared beforehand. He counted carefully. In just over half an hour, he harvested 106 fire scorpion bones. By the end, the beast hide pouch was so full it could hold no more. Fire scorpion tails were also worth a small amount of spirit stones, but looking at the bulging bag of marrow bones, Nguy Tac suddenly felt rich and magnanimous. He waved at the pile of corpses. Fine, since you all died so tragically, I'll leave your tails alone. How did you get so many fire scorpion bones? That night, when Nguy Tac returned to the little stone house and pulled the blackened ghost nurturing jar from beneath his bed, the green-robed old man saw the mountain of fire scorpion bones on the table and stared until his eyes looked like bronze bells. Haha, I got lucky. I ran into a group of male fire scorpions fighting over one female. I waited until they killed each other, then went in and collected the bodies. Nguy Tac laughed while sorting the silver candle grass and firetail flower he had casually gathered on the way home. By now he had discovered that higher quality silver candle grass and firetail flower produced smoother talisman paper, which in turn increased his success rate. You think I'm an idiot? The green-robed old man rolled his eyes angrily. Haha, if you want to know what really happened, tell me something useful in exchange, Nguy Tac replied shamelessly. Enough. You should understand the principle of advancing one step at a time. Of course I do. But you said that once I reach the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm, you'll give me more benefits. Keeping it all mysterious like this makes my heart itch, as if a cat is scratching it. At least tell me what benefit I'll get when I reach the 4th level. Fine. The green-robed old man answered, at that point I'll give you a useful pill formula. I'll also tell you a few things, for example, what methods work best against certain demonic beasts, where certain places are, and how to reach them. I even know the locations of cave dwellings, established by independent cultivators tens of thousands of years ago. Of course, after all this time, those cultivators are probably long dead. Damn, that's incredible! Nguy Tac's eyes widened immediately. The pill formula alone was enough to excite him. He wasn't stupid. Judging by the green-robed old man's expression, that formula was probably just as useful to him as the fireball talisman formula. But beyond that, there were cave dwellings. What was a cultivator's cave dwelling? For independent cultivators, it was often their most important private residence, the place where they stored their best possessions. Over the years, ruins of ancient sects and abandoned cave dwellings had occasionally been discovered on the heavenly profound continent. And every discovery sparked fierce competition between countless powers. If Nguy Tac found 1 or 2 intact cave dwellings left behind by powerful independent cultivators who had already died, he would truly become rich overnight. A cultivator capable of maintaining such a residence would almost certainly have left behind a few valuable magical treasures. And then there was the wild wasteland beyond the celestial dome barrier. It was vast beyond measure. Even Heavenly Unity Sect, the strongest power in Spirit Peak City, was familiar with only a small portion of the wilderness near the city. The wild wasteland contained not only countless demonic beasts, but also terrifying numbers of high-rank beasts. Even Golden Core Realm cultivators could die there. That was why maps of explored regions were extraordinarily valuable. The green-robed old man had gone through more than 50 masters and accumulated tens of thousands of years of experience. Judging by his manner, he had probably traveled not merely across several continents, but through many regions beyond the celestial dome barrier as well. What mattered most in the cultivation world? Experience. Nguy Tac had not fully understood before, but now that he thought carefully, he finally grasped how valuable this old artifact spirit truly was. Old man, it looks like whether I ever get to touch Thuiling Ni in this life depends entirely on you. But if that pill formula is so good, why not tell me now? Why wait until I reach the 4th level? Because I don't want you dying for nothing. The green-robed old man sneered. Judging by your personality, if I told you today, you might run there tomorrow. That pill is only useful once you reach the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm. And as for the place I'm talking about, you'll need at least that level of cultivation if you want to keep your life. Fine. I still have one more question. Why do you have so many questions? Last one for today. Nguy Tac scratched his head. Old man, when you first appeared, you immediately demanded fire scorpion blood and said it could nourish your essence. But how exactly do you drink it? This time, the green-robed old man was the one who paused. He looked at Nguy Tac, then pointed to a certain spot on the ghost-nurturing jar. Drip the fire scorpion blood there. Really? Nguy Tac carefully squeezed a drop of marrow blood from one fire scorpion bone onto the indicated spot. Green light immediately flared. Faint glowing runes moved across the surface, and the drop of blood seemed to dissolve directly into the light. After absorbing that single drop, the green-robed old man's complexion visibly improved. Nguy Tac glanced at him and added the marrow blood from another bone. When he reached for a third, the old man shook his head. That's enough. Enough? With the formations in the ghost-nurturing jar damaged this badly, I can only absorb that much fire scorpion blood every 3 days. Any more would be wasted. Then suit yourself. Nguy Tac had harvested so many bones that refusing the old man entirely would have been unreasonable. But each bone was effectively worth part of a spirit stone, so he still felt the loss. Hearing the old man himself say that 2 were enough, Nguy Tac immediately brightened. He carefully sealed the remaining 104 fire scorpion bones inside several glass bottles, then began refining talisman paper. After producing 16 sheets whose quality satisfied him, he took out his talisman brush. From his previous experience, he knew that refining around 14 fireball talismans in one session brought both his physical and mental stamina close to the limit. Pop! Pop! Crimson light flashed repeatedly inside the little stone house. Talisman crafting really isn't work for humans. Several hours later, Nguy Tac once again lay motionless on the bed, completely exhausted. 9 newly refined fireball talismans shimmered on the stone table nearby. This time he had forced himself through 16 attempts and succeeded 9 times. His success rate had already exceeded 50%. Wahahaha! Another one! For the next 6 days, laughter repeatedly erupted from the little stone house laughter, like that of a veteran brothel customer, watching the most famous courtesan undress. Nguy Tac had entered a state of complete obsession. Every 2 successful fireball talismans meant 1 low-grade spirit stone in his pocket. To someone who had lacked spirit stones for years, it felt as if he had accidentally fallen into a spirit stone mine, where every scoop of dirt produced money. Naturally, he worked day and night and completely forgot the passage of time. To the green-robed old man, it was as though he himself had picked up a treasure. His judgment had been correct. Nguy Tac truly possessed strong talent for talisman crafting. By now, if Nguy Tac attempted 16 fireball talismans, he could normally succeed with around 12. That was a success rate above 70%, and he was still using only an ordinary talisman brush. If he switched to a high-quality brush, his success rate could probably rise beyond 80%. Among all the old man's previous masters, none had ever achieved such a high success rate with the fireball talisman. Nguy Tac had also developed his own rhythm. Whenever talisman crafting exhausted him, he stopped and refined talisman paper instead, since that work consumed little mental energy. Once his spirit recovered, he resumed drawing talismans. At first, he could produce at most 10 fireball talismans per day. By the 3rd day, he was already producing more than 30. This brat is actually a talisman crafting genius. What kind of ghost luck is this? Whenever the green-robed old man saw Nguy Tac holding up a newly finished talisman and laughing proudly, he could only shake his head. If he had not witnessed it personally, he would never have associated this shameless, money-grubbing brat with the words, talisman crafting genius. What are you doing? After shaking his head, the old man suddenly stared. Every day, Nguy Tac counted his completed fireball talismans several times, and every time he did, his eyes shone like stars. This time, after counting them, he spread the talismans across his bed. When the old man asked what he was doing, Nguy Tac chuckled and lay directly on top of the pile to sleep. The green-robed old man had no words. Now he finally understood why this brat's success rate was so high. Nguy Tac was a genuine money fanatic. 1 low-grade spirit stone was enough to make his eyes shine. A single fireball talisman was half a spirit stone. Of course, he drew every stroke more carefully than anyone else. Ha! Lying on the pile of talismans, Nguy Tac felt indescribably satisfied. He had counted them countless times already. Over the past 7 days, he had refined exactly 140 fireball talismans, 140 talismans, exactly 70 low-grade spawns. After lying there for a while, Nguy Tac sat up, gathered them all, and stuffed them into a leather pouch.
What are you doing?
The green-robed old man asked when he saw him preparing to leave. Selling talismans. Most shops should still be open at this hour. Nguy Tac replied, making 30 fireball talismans a day is exhausting. I might as well exchange some for spirit stones. Then when I'm too tired to craft talismans, I can cultivate instead. I'm only making these things to earn spirit stones for cultivation anyway. That way I can do both without wasting time. That idea isn't bad. The green-robed old man sneered. But if you swagger into the market and sell all these fireball talismans at once, within 2 days that Heavenly Unity sect or some other power in Spirit Peak City will come looking for you. Then you'll spend the rest of your life obediently refining talismans for them, and I can forget about ever condensing a body. What do you mean? Nguy Tac scratched his head, genuinely confused. How many talisman craftsmen and alchemists are there in Spirit Peak City? The old man asked. Nguy Tac thought for a moment. Maybe 10 or 20? The old man rolled his eyes. Do you understand now? Nguy Tac shook his head. No, you really are a stupid pig. The old man cursed without restraint. Talisman craftsmen with a reliable success rate are rare to begin with. Someone like you, who also knows a new formula, is basically a hen that lays golden eggs. Every sect would want to drag you home. Once that happens, if you refine 10 talismans, do you think all 10 will belong to you? You'll be lucky if they let you keep one. And as for an artifact spirit like me, other people have at least a dozen methods to extract what's in my mind. Worse, to stop the formula from spreading to rival sects, they might simply destroy me afterward. It's one thing if a bastard like you gets dragged away for forced labor, but don't drag me down with you. That really is a difficult problem. Nguy Tac's eyes shifted rapidly. Then he suddenly chuckled. Old man, relax. I guarantee there won't be any problem selling these fireball talismans. No problem? The old man looked unconvinced. It's already night, so I can't go too far from Spirit Peak City. But with all these fire talismans on me, there shouldn't be much danger. I'll bring you along and let you watch. Nguy Tac laughed, stuffed the blackened jar inside his robe, locked the door, and shot away like a streak of smoke. That evening, 3 cultivators carrying bags were returning towards Spirit Peak City. All 3 were low-level cultivators who had gone out to gather 2 or 3 kinds of medicinal herbs for local shops. People at their level did not dare spend the night outside the city. As they passed Blackwater Marsh, they saw a young man with messy, fire-scorched-looking hair feeling around in the mud. That brat definitely can't afford his rent. It's already this late and he's still out here trying his luck. Blackwater Marsh lay less than 100 li south of the city. It was a vast swamp where fist-sized bubbles constantly rose from the mud. Demonic beasts rarely appeared there. However, legends said that several thousand years earlier, many cultivators had fought a major battle in this region. Occasionally, fragments of magical treasures or other relics surfaced from the mud along with the bubbles. So now and then cultivators came here to dig around in hopes of finding something valuable. Seeing someone still searching the marsh this late at night, the 3 cultivators assumed he had to be desperately poor and had no other way to make money. Compared with him, they suddenly felt their own lives were not so bad. One of them even laughed at his misfortune and shouted toward the young man, "Brother, working hard, aren't you? Found anything? Not yet. Oh, what's this? Splash!" To the astonishment of all 3, the young man suddenly pulled a small, rusted iron chest out of the mud. It looked extremely old. "Fire talismans! There are so many fire talismans! He really found something?" The 3 stared in disbelief. The young man opened the rusted chest, and inside lay stacks upon stacks of bright red talismans, all glowing faintly crimson. "My luck is unbelievable today. No matter what, I have to give you 3-1 as thanks for witnessing this." The young man pulled out a talisman, stuffed it into the hand of one stunned cultivator, then hurriedly shoved the rest inside his robe and vanished into the darkness. Is this really a fire talisman? Did he really dig up that many? The square-faced cultivator stared at the crimson talisman in his hand for a long moment, then gritted his teeth and poured true essence into it. Boom! A fireball as large as a wagon wheel shot from his hand and exploded over the swamp, illuminating several hundred zhang with blazing light. A first-rank fireball talisman, it really is one. That brat's luck is insane. He found that many first-rank fireball talismans. There had to be several hundred in that chest. All 3 instantly lost whatever pleasure they had taken in someone else's poverty. Now they were beating their chests in regret. "Well, old man, wasn't that move brilliant?" After returning to the stone house, Nguy Tac pulled out the ghost-nurturing jar and asked proudly, "Brilliant, my ass! So many fire to talismans!" The way you shouted those lines sounded fake as hell. "Haha, really? I thought it was pretty convincing. By tomorrow, everyone in Spirit Peak City will know someone got lucky and found a pile of fireball talismans. Then I can sell them without anyone suspecting me, right?" Nguy Tac laughed, stripped off his mud-covered clothes, jumped into a wooden tub full of water, and happily began washing himself. "Hurry to Blackrobe Marsh. I heard someone found 200 fireball talismans there." "What?" "Someone found 1,000 fireball talismans in Blackrobe Marsh." Just as Nguy Tac had predicted, The three cultivators who had originally taken pleasure in his supposed misfortune soon became so jealous they nearly went mad, furious that they had not been the ones to open the iron chest. They spread the story quickly. In truth, Nguy Tac had waited a long time for those three. He needed witnesses who were at least low-level cultivators like himself. Otherwise, if someone stronger saw that many fireball talismans, he could not guarantee they would not simply kill him and take everything. Nguy Tac had pretended to search around Black Robe Marsh for almost 2 hours before the right three people finally came along. What he had not expected was how wildly the rumor would mutate. The number of talismans soon became almost mythical. 100 turned into 1,000, then tens of thousands. Even stranger stories began spreading. Someone claimed they had personally seen Nguy Tac dig up an intact and powerful magical treasure. Someone else swore he had found the beast core of a 7th-ranked demonic beast. No way. As the original creator of the rumor, Nguy Tac nearly slammed his head into the ground when he overheard people discussing it while he was selling fireball talismans in the northern market. Because now a few people were claiming that someone had seen him dig up the undergarment of White Spirit Fairy, the most beautiful female cultivator on the heavenly profound continent several thousand years ago. Wasn't that taking things a little too far? By now, several hundred people were constantly gathered around Black Robe Marsh. Nguy Tac even heard that two fairly powerful factions had fought each other over priority rights to search a certain section of the swamp. He desperately wanted to go watch the excitement. But safety came first. Instead, he hurried into a magnificent golden hall in the Eastern District, above whose entrance hung a plaque bearing the two enormous gold characters, Heavenly Unity. At that same moment, Han Vivi was wandering through the free market outside the city. For a young woman, every first time could be extremely important. The first demonic beasts Han Vivi had ever killed on her own were those two stone-tailed wall lizards. She was not actually as stupid as Nguy Tac thought. For her first secret trip outside to hunt alone, killing 2 second-rank beasts was already fairly impressive. Yet after all her effort, Nguy Tac had stolen both of them. Worse, he had not even robbed her openly. He had pretended to take off his pants, made her turn away, then snatched both corpses and ran. Han Vivi's impression of Nguy Tac was, therefore, unforgettable. For the past few days, she had repeatedly visited the free market, assuming that a low-level independent cultivator like him would probably trade there. She had no idea he had spent the entire time shut inside his house refining talismans. Now, although Nguy Tac's hair was messy and scorched, and Han Vivi only caught a distant view of his profile, she recognized the shameless bastard immediately. The memory of him escaping while blowing her a kiss, "Beautiful lady, next time we meet, let's have tea together," made her grind her teeth. She immediately rushed after him. The building marked with the two enormous golden characters Heavenly Unity contained one of Heavenly Unity sect's teleportation formations. Within several thousand li of Spirit Peak City, Heavenly Unity sect had constructed many such formations. Because Spirit Peak City lay near the edge of the heavenly profound continent, some formations even led beyond the celestial dome barrier. As long as one paid enough spirit stones, a cultivator could leave the city and appear thousands of li away, directly in the wilderness beyond the barrier. The grand hall itself was spacious and imposing. 16 golden dragon-wrapped pillars supported the structure, while 3 teleportation formations occupied the center, inlaid with crystals of many colors and covered in mysterious runes. "You shameless bastard!" Han Vivi charged into the hall just in time to see Nguy Tac's figure vanish inside the white light of one formation. Activate the formation immediately. Before the Heavenly Unity disciple standing beside it could speak, Han Vivi threw him 3 low-grade spirit stones and stepped onto the same formation Nguy Tac had just used. Where did the man with the burned-looking hair teleport to? The instant Han Vivi emerged, she found herself in a barren mountain valley. The Heavenly Unity disciple had activated the formation quickly, but by the time she arrived, Nguy Tac was nowhere to be seen. Without even asking where she was, she immediately questioned the young Heavenly Unity disciple guarding the local formation. He already used this formation to teleport back to Spirit Peak City. The disciple pointed to another formation nearby. What? He just teleported here from Spirit Peak City, then immediately teleported back? Han Vivi's eyes widened. "I don't understand either," the disciple said with a helpless smile. "He arrived and turned around almost immediately. I have no idea why." Han Vivi was speechless. Each use of a teleportation formation cost 2 low-grade spirit stones. Heavenly Unity sect was the strongest power in Spirit Peak City. Yet even a disciple assigned to guard a formation all day received at most 3 low-grade spirit stones as allowance. The previous disciple in the city had looked confused for exactly this reason. Why would a low-level independent cultivator only at the 2nd level of the Divine Sea realm waste 4 low-grade spirit stones just teleporting back and forth for fun? While Han VV stood there dumbfounded, two cultivators teleported in from Spirit Peak City. Both wore gray magical robes and had cultivation at the first level of the Heavenly Circuit realm. Nguy Tac, of course, knew absolutely nothing about any of this. The valley was called Dragon Origin Valley. It lay roughly 300 li southeast of Spirit Peak City and served as an entrance toward Black Wind Ridge. That mountain range stretched several hundred li and contained many regions filled with strange black miasma. Second-rank demonic beasts such as five-colored poison spiders were common there. Cultivators traveled through the area frequently. Since small teleportation formations of this type could carry only 4 people at a time, Heavenly Unity Sect had constructed 2 side by side. The second connected to another formation in the western district of Spirit Peak City. After teleporting back, Nguy Tac left the formation as quickly as possible. He slipped into a nearby alley, pulled a black robe from the bundle on his back, wrapped it around his entire head and body, then took a different route through several deserted lanes before finally returning to his little stone house. A man whose eyes lit up at the sight of one low-grade spirit stone would never waste 4 for no reason. Nguy Tac knew that if someone targeted him, a low-level cultivator like himself would have little chance of shaking off a determined pursuer. So he had devised a simple method: use teleportation formations to break the trail. There was a delay of at least a dozen seconds between activations. 2 consecutive teleports gave him at least 20 seconds of separation. For someone as familiar with every alley in the Western District as Nguy Tac, that was more than enough time to disappear safely back home. Haha, 66! What an auspicious number! Completely unaware that he had just escaped Han VV, Nguy Tac scattered all his low-grade spirit stones across the bed. He had earned 70 in total. After spending 4 on teleportation, 66 remained, each about the size of a pigeon egg and glowing faintly green. Nguy Tac had never possessed so many spirit stones in his life. The sight almost dazzled him. He happily lay down on top of them. A moment later, he grimaced. Not as comfortable as sleeping on talismans. Spirit stones were hard. Old man? Old man? He called twice, but the green-robed old man did not respond. Nguy Tac guessed the old man was probably restoring his essence, so he sat up, grabbed one low-grade spirit stone, closed his eyes, and began cultivating. Within moments, his breathing, heartbeat, and pulse all settled into a strange rhythm. Faint blue-green currents began flowing from the spirit stone in his hand and sinking into his skin. Nguy Tac remained motionless. More and more energy streamed from the stone into his body, while his skin took on a warm, lustrous sheen. The green glow of the low-grade spirit stone gradually faded. About half an hour later, the final trace of green disappeared. The stone became almost transparent, with a few dirty streaks of impurity visible inside, then crumbled into several fragments in his hand. Puff! Nguy Tac exhaled a mouthful of murky violet air and opened his eyes, looking at the broken spirit stone with lingering satisfaction. Damn, looks like I really need to keep earning spirit stones and buy a higher-grade true essence cultivation method. Absorbing a low-grade spirit stone felt wonderfully refreshing, but after tossing away the fragments, Nguy Tac still shook his head. According to the green-robed old man, cultivation methods had been divided for the last 20 or 30,000 years into 4 major grades: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. Heaven-grade methods were the best. Yellow-grade were the worst. Nguy Tac's purple mystic true art technically belonged to the Profound tier, but it was the lowest grade within that tier. Across the cultivation world, the first cultivation realm was called the Divine Sea Realm. A person was not truly considered an entry-level cultivator until they could absorb spiritual energy from spirit stones, or refine pills into true essence, and had opened at least one internal aperture capable of storing that essence. The name Divine Sea came from the way true essence, when sufficiently abundant, could roar through the body, like rivers and oceans. Nguy Tac had already opened a second aperture and reached the second level of the Divine Sea Realm, but when his true essence flowed through his body, did it sound like roaring rivers and crashing seas? No, he could not even hear a faint hiss like someone relieving themselves. That was how poor the purple mystic true art was. A mid-grade profound tier cultivation method, practiced to the same second level of the Divine Sea Realm, could produce 3 or 4 times as much total true essence. A high-grade profound tier method might produce around 10 times as much. At Nguy Tac's current cultivation, he could cast the Azure Water Blade only a little over 20 times. Another cultivator at the same second level, but using a high-grade profound method, could cast it at least 200 times. And quantity was not the only issue. Even if Nguy Tac somehow obtained several powerful spells, his true essence might be too weak to activate them. A cultivator using a higher-grade method, however, might be able to do so at the exact same realm. Right now, the true essence flowing through Nguy Tac's meridians did not even make a trickling water sound. But someone cultivating an earth grade or heaven grade method might possess dozens of times more true essence. Even at the first level of the divine sea realm, their internal flow might already roar like a river. Across the heavenly profound continent, low-grade profound methods were not especially difficult to obtain. But high-grade profound methods and above were generally controlled by sects. Even if one possessed enough spirit stones, they were rarely available for purchase. Unless, of course, one joined a sect, became a disciple, worked for it, earned merit, and eventually received a better technique. Joining a sect sounded attractive. They even distributed spirit stones for cultivation, but when the sect needed people to risk their lives, refusal was not an option. Nguy Tac remembered that several years earlier, Heavenly Unity sect had hunted a 5th-rank demonic beast called Fire-Killing Beast outside the Celestial Dome barrier. More than 40 disciples had died. A 5th-rank beast possessed only one beast core. Those dead disciples certainly had not received a share of it. Compared with that, Nguy Tac still preferred keeping his life in his own hands. I wonder what grade of cultivation method Nguy uses. Profound Wind sect is supposedly one of the top sects on the entire Heavenly Profound continent, many times stronger than Heavenly Unity sect. She must cultivate at least an earth-grade method. And that curvy little beauty probably uses at least a high-grade profound method. Now that a pile of spirit stones surrounded him, Nguy Tac looked at the portraits of Nguy beside his bed and thought of Han VV again. He began comparing the two unconsciously. The curvy silver-robed beauty had her own alluring charm. But Ngui's full, pale chest still seemed more capable of making a man's blood surge. Forget it. My purple mystic true art may be a little weak, but anyone who reaches the Golden Core realm is still a major figure. Nguy Tac could be impatient, but he was not the kind of person who chased impossible dreams. Knowing that he had no way to obtain a higher-grade cultivation method for the moment, he picked up another low-grade spirit stone and resumed cultivating. Late at night, dim light filled the little stone house. A shallow oil lamp flickered weakly. Nguy Tac sat unmoving on the bed while streams of blue-green energy flowed from the spirit stone in his hand and entered his body. On the stone table lay several bright red sheets of talisman paper and stacks of completed fireball talismans. Time passed silently. The oil in the lamp ran dry. The flame flickered several times, then died. In the darkness, the aperture at Nguy Tac's chest suddenly erupted with violet light. His body trembled slightly, and at last, the faint sound of flowing water could be heard from within him. Damn it! Finally! 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm. Nguy Tac opened his eyes in overwhelming excitement. Violet light flashed across his pupils. After 5 straight days of shutting himself indoors to craft talismans and cultivate, he had successfully broken through to the 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm. If he closed his eyes and looked inward now, he could see 3 separate pools of violet true essence, one at the crown of his head, one at his chest, and one in his dantian. Threads of true essence linked the 3 apertures and circulated through his body according to a fixed pattern. His total true essence had nearly doubled. That wasn't easy. At least I finally have the sound of flowing water. This breakthrough had come faster than he expected. Originally, even with sufficient spirit stones, he thought it would take 8 or 9 days. Perhaps because he had spent so many years cultivating while constantly starved of spiritual energy, his body now absorbed spirit stones more efficiently than ordinary cultivators. Or perhaps the daily strain of talisman crafting had strengthened his spiritual consciousness. Nguy Tac could clearly tell that his spiritual sense was much stronger than before, allowing him to perceive the internal circulation of true essence more precisely while cultivating. Whatever the reason, he had needed only 5 days and 40 low-grade spirit stones for the purple mystic true art to reach the 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm. Looks like I need to figure out how to earn more spirit stones again. After carefully sensing the changes inside his body, Nguy Tac relit the oil lamp, looked at the talismans and materials on the table, and shook his head. Including the 1 low-grade spirit stone he had owned before, he now had 27 left. And the fire scorpion marrow blood from the previous hunt was basically gone. Nguy Tac tucked a night pearl the size of a pigeon egg into his robe. It gave off a soft white glow. After leaving the old fox's shop, he headed toward Rabbit Market Bridge in the northern district. This time he had not sold more fireball talismans for spirit stones. The green-robed old man had made a very good point. Repeating that trick would risk drawing the attention of the major powers in Spirit Peak City. His current plan was to use the 27 remaining low-grade spirit stones to purchase equipment, then rely on that equipment and his fireball talismans to hunt valuable materials for sale. Rabbit Market Bridge itself was nothing more than an ordinary black stone bridge, but it had been built at the same time as Spirit Peak City and was one of the oldest structures in the area. South of the bridge stood a huge stone wall where many shops and merchants posted notices. It functioned as the largest public notice board in the northern district. Accepting commissions from shops and merchants to gather specific materials was one of the main ways independent cultivators across the heavenly profound continent earned spirit stones for cultivation. Nguy Tac had used up his chi recovery powder, and his Earthshield treasure talisman, although still powerful, had only one use remaining. So he first purchased 4 bottles of chi recovery powder. The total spiritual energy contained in 2 bottles was less than what one low-grade spirit stone held, but when it came to rapidly restoring true essence, a spirit stone could not compare. Chi recovery powder was practically mandatory equipment for every low-level independent cultivator. Nguy Tac desperately hoped the green-robed old man knew a formula for something like it. If the ingredients were as cheap as those of the fireball talisman, then he would truly become rich. Unfortunately, the old man clearly did not know such a formula. Otherwise, he would have given it to Nguy Tac together with the fireball talisman recipe. After buying the 4 bottles, Nguy Tac gritted his teeth and spent 3 low-grade spirit stones on a second-rank frost talisman. Then he paid 15 low-grade spirit stones for a spirit heaven jade pendant, 1 spirit stone for a wind escape talisman, and another for a Kim Kwang talisman. At the moment, apart from fireball talismans, Nguy Tac possessed no truly strong offensive magical treasure. The second-rank frost talisman was roughly as powerful as a spell cast by a first-level heavenly circuit realm cultivator. In addition, it could freeze an enemy and slow their movements. The Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant was an artifact produced by Heavenly Unity Sect. The spiritual light barrier it created possessed defensive power comparable to the Earthshield treasure talisman. However, unlike the treasure talisman, it could be activated 5 times. More importantly, once triggered, it could automatically sense changes in nearby energy. If the wearer was ambushed, the defensive barrier would activate on its own. For someone traveling through wilderness filled with demonic beasts, it was a life-saving item Nguy Tac had wanted for a long time. In the past, he had never possessed more than 7 low-grade spirit stones at once, so buying one had been impossible. After purchasing the jade pendant, he also bought a Kim Kwang talisman for defense. His reasoning was simple. Against weaker beasts, he could use the 1 spirit stone talisman instead of wasting one of the limited activations of the Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant. The Night Pearl had also cost him 1 low-grade spirit stone. He bought it in case he became trapped somewhere dark outside the city, and also because brighter light inside his little stone house improved his talisman crafting success rate at night. After all that careful planning, the 27 low-grade spirit stones in his pouch had become 5. "Brother, could we find somewhere private to talk?" As Nguy Tac approached an alley beside Rabbit Market Bridge, 3 people appeared behind him and called out. He turned in surprise. The speaker was a young Taoist in green robes, around 27 or 28 years old, with a slightly long face and an extremely friendly expression. Beside him stood a man and a woman. The man looked a little over 30, tall and powerfully built, more than half a head taller than Nguy Tac. His face looked honest and straightforward. He wore a tight green outfit. Beneath it, black metallic light occasionally flashed, suggesting some kind of metal inner armor. A long cloth-wrapped object was strapped across his back, probably a heavy weapon. The woman beside him wore pale yellow clothes embroidered with green rose patterns. She had an oval face, fair skin, and looked 2 or 3 years older than Nguy Tac. Ordinary magical robe, not worth much. Black iron, soft inner armor, maybe 1 low-grade spirit stone. That woman looks pretty good too, because poverty had trained him to immediately estimate the value of whatever someone wore. Nguy Tac first evaluated the trio's belongings to see whether they were low-level independent cultivators like himself. Only then did he sneak another glance at the pretty oval-faced woman and ask the young Taoist, "May I ask what this is about? I don't believe I know any of you." "This one is Lam Down Hat. These 2 are Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi." The long-faced young Taoist smiled politely. "Forgive my sudden approach. We have a job that could earn quite a lot of spirit stones. With 1 more person, our chances of success would improve. We would like to invite fellow Taoists to join us. Would you be interested? A job that pays well? What kind of job?" Nguy Tac paused. He knew that independent cultivators often formed temporary teams to accept high-paying commissions that were too difficult for 1 person. But his personal principle had always been safety first. If a task was too dangerous and he wasn't confident of success, no amount of money would tempt him. "Could we find somewhere private to discuss it?" Lam Dao Not asked mysteriously. Nguy Tac shrugged and nodded. Murder and robbery were forbidden inside Spirit Peak City, and these 3, especially the young woman in pale yellow, did not give him a bad impression. Seeing his agreement, Lam Dao Not led the way. They did not go far, stopping in a quiet side alley near Rabbit Market Bridge. After making sure no one had followed them, Lam Dao Not lowered his voice. "Actually, this is not a formal commission. I have reliable information that there are 3 ice silk spiders somewhere outside Spirit Peak City. 3 ice silk spiders? Nguy Tac's expression sharpened. An ice silk spider was a mid-tier 3rd-rank demonic beast. The ice silk contained in its silk sac was long, tough, and resistant to fire, making it an excellent material for refining fire-resistant magical robes. More importantly, all 3rd-rank demonic beasts possessed beast cores. A core from a mid-tier 3rd-rank beast was worth around 50 low-grade spirit stones or more. 3 adult ice silk spiders together would be worth over 190 low-grade spirit stones. Inside the Celestial Dome barrier, 3rd-rank beasts were relatively rare. Why invite me? Nguy Tac asked. 190 low-grade spirit stones was enough money to make him take the matter seriously. But he did not believe he looked so heroic and extraordinary, with hair like a burned bird's nest, that strangers would simply walk up and invite him to get rich. We noticed you in the market earlier, Lam Dao Nat explained. You purchased a 2nd-rank Frost Talisman and a Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant. Someone capable of buying those things should not be weak. But if you were too strong, we would not dare invite you to hunt with us either. Your cultivation seems similar to ours 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm, so you fit exactly what we need. How do you know I'm at the 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm? Nguy Tac asked in surprise. Aside from certain distinctive cultivation methods, it was normally difficult to judge someone's exact realm just by looking. When he met the silver-robed little beauty, he had only guessed she was 2 levels above him because of the strength of her Icewind blade. Oh, I know a chi observation art, Lam Dao Nat said with a smile, though I can't see through anyone more than 2 levels above me. A chi observation technique like that is extremely useful. I need to find a way to learn one someday, Nguy Tac thought. His eyes shifted as he continued, but why should I trust you? The ice silk spiders were discovered by these brother and sister. Fellow Taoists should know that people from Flying Eagle have a trustworthy reputation. Lam Dao Nat gestured toward Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi, who had been standing quietly beside him. You two are from Flying Eagle, and your siblings? Nguy Tac knew Flying Eagle was a small organization of low-level independent cultivators based in Falling Moon City, the nearest city to Spirit Peak. It had been formed by cultivators who knew and trusted one another. People from Flying Eagle had a strong reputation for keeping their word. What Nguy Tac found harder to understand was how Diep Tu Chin and Diep Ko Vi could possibly be siblings. The man looked rough and huge, almost like a great ape. The woman had pale skin and delicate features. There was practically nothing alike about them. That's right, we are from Flying Eagle. Diep Tu Chin nodded and pulled a small black metal badge from inside his clothes. An eagle in flight was engraved on it. The other members of Flying Eagle have gone to Supreme Unity City to handle another commission. We were afraid the ice silk spiders might move away if we waited too long, so we contacted Lam Dao Nat, whom we already knew, and decided to hunt them as soon as possible. If fellow Taoist is still worried, there is one more thing, Lam Dao Nat added. For safety, we have also hired someone from Iron Strategy Alliance. The fee is 40 low-grade spirit stones. If everything goes smoothly, each of us should still receive more than 30 low-grade spirit stones. In that case, I'll go with you. Nguy Tac nodded without hesitation. Iron Strategy Alliance was another organization formed by independent cultivators in Spirit Peak City. There were more than a dozen such groups in the city, but none could compare with Iron Strategy Alliance in reputation and scale. Membership was voluntary. Anyone could join or leave freely. Even so, Iron Strategy Alliance possessed strength comparable to several actual sects. Its members were also famous for keeping their word. If they agreed to a certain payment, they accepted exactly that amount. They would not break the agreement simply because more profit appeared in front of them. That reputation had only grown stronger over the years. 30 low-grade spirit stones was equivalent to 2 full days of Nguy Tac, crafting talismans without rest. With people from Flying Eagle and Iron Strategy Alliance involved, there should not be much danger from betrayal. As for the 3 ice silk spiders, Nguy Tac still had more than 100 fireball talismans on him. Worst case, he could burn through them and save his own life. Every time I hunt demonic beasts, I somehow end up traveling with 2 beauties. Isn't life wonderful? Standing before a damp cave entrance covered in rotting leaves, Nguy Tac's gaze kept wandering between Diep Ko Vi's waist and the hips of Nam Kung Vu Tin in front of him. When he had first met Nam Kung Vu Tin at Heavenly Unity Sect's teleportation formation in the Southern District, his eyes had nearly fallen out. Lam Dao Nat had only said they had hired someone from Iron Strategy Alliance. Nguy Tac had not expected that person to be a woman, much less such an explosively attractive beauty. Nam Kung Vu Tin had a slightly round face and long black hair braided into 2 plaits, giving her a sweet appearance. But the truly lethal part was her figure. She was quite tall, nearly as tall as Nguy Tac, with long, strong legs, and she wore tight red leather armor. In armor like that, Everything that should curve outward curved outward, and everything that should narrow inward narrowed inward. A man could get a nosebleed just from looking at the wrong place too long. Nguy Tac was so poor that he normally evaluated every person in terms of how many spirit stones they were wearing. Yet this time it took him a long while before he finally noticed that Nam Kung Vu Ting's armor was made from the hide of a third-rank demonic beast called Scarlet Fire Cevet. Once refined, Scarlet Fire Cevet hide became both soft and extremely tough, making it one of the best materials for light inner armor, and especially popular among female cultivators on the heavenly profound continent. The hide could withstand attacks from a 5th-level Divine Sea Realm cultivator. However, only a small portion of the beast's back could be used for armor. A complete suit like Nam Kung Vu Ting's would require at least 20 Scarlet Fire Civets. Its value had to exceed 100 low-grade spirit stones. Anyone who could wear armor like this had to be at least a 4th-level Divine Sea Realm cultivator. No, probably 5th level. Nguy Tac looked at the tempting fullness of Nam Kung Vu Ting's chest and silently revised his estimate. Just as he had expected, the place where Diep Tua Chin and Diep Ko Vai had discovered the ice silk spiders was not too far from Spirit Peak City. The group was now in Tangled Vine Mountain, roughly 700 south of the city. Besides towering trees, the mountain was overgrown with countless strange vines. The interior was dark and extremely humid. The ground was sticky with moisture, and ordinary poisonous snakes and insects were everywhere. The gloomy cave before them lay inside an old forest on the far side of the mountain. The surrounding vines were heavy with hard gray fruits. Let's go. Ice silk spiders are different from ordinary demonic beasts. They only come out voluntarily when hunting. Normal noises don't lure them from their nests. We'll have to enter the cave if we want to kill all three. After carefully studying the entrance for a while, Lam Down Hot, acting as the temporary leader of the group, nodded and entered together with Nam Kung Vu Tin. Nguy Tac had no objection to letting Lam Down be the leader. In this kind of environment, the people at the very front and very back faced the most danger. The moment Lam Down Nat and Nam Chung Vu Ting moved forward, Nguy Tac immediately followed behind them. That big guy really is honest. Nguy Tac noticed Diep Tu Chin deliberately falling back to walk beside Diep Ko Vi at the rear. Once inside the cave, Lam Down Nat lit a white cord. Nguy Tac recognized it as something made from the fat of a first-rank demonic beast called white thread fish. Once ignited, it would not go out even in violent wind, and a single length could burn for several hours. The night pearl Nguy Tac had purchased would have been extremely useful here, but he decided it was better not to attract the ice silk spider's attention unnecessarily. The cave was narrow and long, barely wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side, and only 3 or 4 zhang high. Under the pale white light from Lam Dao Nat's hand, the walls looked slick and wet, reflecting dark blue-green light and giving off a rotting smell. Even that would have been tolerable. But water constantly dripped from the rock overhead, and the miserable environment made Nguy Tac keep shrinking his neck into his shoulders. They had walked for roughly 2 incense sticks when, just as even Nguy Tac was beginning to feel uneasy about the oppressive silence, Lam Dao Nat and Nam Kung Fuding suddenly stopped dead. The halt was so abrupt that Nguy Tac and Diep Ko Vi, walking close behind Nam Kung Fu Ting, could not stop in time. Nguy Tac slammed directly into Nam Kung Vu Ting's back. That waist, those thighs. Her tight, soft armor was flexible enough that, pressed against her like this, Nguy Tac could almost feel the warmth of her skin. The sensation was not far from embracing a naked body, and that was not the end of it. Diep Ko Vi crashed into him from behind, and Nguy Tac immediately felt 2 incredibly soft mounds press against his back. In front was a body with astonishing curves and elasticity. Behind were 2 soft, warm pressures against him. Nam Kung Vu Tin really is wonderfully springy. Diep Ko Vi isn't small either, but Tuiling knees are probably bigger. Nguy Tac suddenly felt that life was extremely kind. At the exact moment he pressed into Nam Kung Vu Tin, she let out a soft cry and instinctively reached one hand behind herself to push him away. But the moment her hand touched a particularly sensitive part of him, her entire body froze. Her mind went blank. Pulling her hand away felt awkward. Leaving it there was even worse. What happened? Diep Tu Chin called from behind. Then Nam Kung Vu Tin heard Nguy Tac's perfectly calm voice beside her ear. Are you planning to keep holding it? Her face burned hot. She yanked her hand back as though she had grabbed a red-hot potato. Everyone, be careful. The ice silk spiders are nearby. Lam Dao Nat stepped forward and moved slightly to the side. Damn! Nguy Tac looked through the gap he had opened. Under the flickering light, he sucked in a cold breath. More than half of his earlier pleasant thoughts vanished instantly. The cave ahead opened into a much larger chamber, almost like a small underground valley. The damp ground was littered with protruding rocks, and covered with the corpses of animals and humans. Every corpse had been sucked completely dry. None had even rotted. The sight was horrifying. Several white silk sacks hung from stone protrusions on the walls. Corpses were sealed inside them, but these bodies had not yet been drained dry. Apparently, they were stored food prepared by the ice silk spiders. There seems to be something on that unlucky bastard's body. Nguy Tac looked closer. One cocoon contained what seemed to be a cultivator. A faint glow came from the chest area, though Nguy Tac could not tell whether it was a talisman or something else. Ice mist fruit! The blush had not completely faded from Diep Co Vai's cheeks when she suddenly cried out softly. Following her gaze, Nguy Tac saw a short plant growing from a crack in the rock. Its dark blue-green leaves resembled fern fronds. 4 white fruits grew along the stem, shaped like knotted lumps. Each fruit released strands of freezing mist, making them look like small chunks of ice suspended in the air. It really is ice mist fruit. There must be a large piece of cold jade inside this mountain. Nguy Tac's eyes immediately lit up. Ice mist fruit was a strange fruit rich in cold spiritual energy. It was an essential ingredient for refining the beast cores of fire element demonic beasts into pills. Each fruit was worth around 20 low-grade spirit stones. Third-rank and higher ice element beasts also liked to eat the fruit to strengthen their own beast cores. A beast core was effectively a demonic beast's equivalent of a cultivator's divine sea, the place where its power was stored. The larger and stronger the core, the more powerful the beast. Ice mist fruit only grew near cold jade deposits. That meant the surrounding rock probably contained a sizable piece of cold jade. Mid-grade cold jade or better could be used to refine talismans and magical treasures, and it was worth a great deal. No wonder 3 ice silk spiders appeared here, Lam Dao Nat whispered. At the same time, he pulled out a talisman. His movements were extremely cautious. The moment Nguy Tac saw the talisman in his hand, he almost burst out laughing. It glowed red. It was one of the fireball talismans Nguy Tac himself had refined. Looks like the fireball talismans I make are pretty popular among Spirit Peak City's independent cultivators, he thought proudly. Careful! Without warning, Nam Kung Vu Ting Ho's face was still faintly red called out. A blue ice flower the size of a palm instantly formed in front of her, rapidly expanding into an ice shield covered in beautiful patterns. Smack! The instant the shield completed, a dark shadow like a thick staff slammed into it. An ice silk spider? Nguy Tac's first thought was that one had attacked, but under the light in Lam Dao Nat's hand, he saw that the attacker was actually a huge serpent as thick as a man's arm and more than a zhang long. Its skin was almost identical in color to the surrounding stone. Grey rock serpent! Lam Dao Nat exclaimed in surprise behind him. No way. Do the ice silk spiders even have second-rank beasts working as little brothers? A grey rock serpent was a mid-tier second-rank demonic beast. Its skin could change color to match the surrounding rock and was extremely tough. Spells cast by cultivators below the second level of the Divine Sea Realm had difficulty injuring it. The serpent could also use the force of its tail to launch itself several zhang in a single burst. Damn, there's more than one? Nguy Tac was still recalling what he knew about the creature when another scraping sound came from the nearby wall. A second grey rock serpent crawled out. Another one? Wahahaha. In the past, another second-rank demonic beast would have made Nguy Tac break into cold sweat. But now he had a whole stack of fireball talismans on him, and Nam Kung Vu Ting clearly possessed real skill. To the current Nguy Tac, a grey rock serpent was practically another walking pile of spirit stones. He almost wished 2 more would crawl out. Her ice shield gives off that much cold energy? Because he was not panicking, Nguy Tac watched carefully. After the first grey rock serpent slammed into Nam Kung Vu Ting's shield and bounced away, its movements became visibly sluggish. A layer of white frost had formed over its head. A rustling sound came from behind. Nguy Tac quickly looked back. Deep Tiu Chin had removed the weapon from his back. It was an enormous black heavy sword, absurdly thick, almost like a door panel. Seeing Deep Tiu Chin preparing to charge, Nguy Tac immediately knew the man really was honest to a fault. Anyone slightly more calculating would never volunteer to rush in first. Deep Tiu Chin, don't charge forward, Lam Dao Nat immediately warned. The space here is narrow. The grey rock serpents can only attack from the front. Let the 2 of us deal with them. Smack! At that same instant, the second serpent slammed into Nam Kung Vu Ting's ice shield. From where Nguy Tac stood, he clearly saw its fangs sink deeply into the ice. Several long cracks appeared across the shield. But at the same time, cold energy spread over the serpent's body, freezing its front half beneath a layer of white frost. A blade of flame quickly condensed in Nam Kung Vu Ting's hand. Whoosh! She slashed it across the grey rock serpent's head. The flame blade did not cut through its tough skin, but the fire poured directly into the serpent's open mouth and down its throat before it could close its jaws. Good obedient snake. First frozen, then burned from inside. Truly a 9-layer heaven of ice and fire, that's vicious. Nguy Tac shook his head sympathetically. The serpent had barely recovered from being frozen before blazing fire flowed down its throat. Its eyes rolled upward wildly. and it twisted as though desperately wanting to clutch its neck. Unfortunately, snakes did not have hands. Nguy Tac, could you stand a little farther back? Nam Kung Vu Tin asked softly after releasing the flame blade. Her ears were still slightly red. Nguy Tac stood directly behind her. Although the gray rock serpents could not break through her frost shield, their physical strength was astonishing. Every impact forced her backward, which meant she kept bumping into Nguy Tac in rather intimate ways. He had been enjoying every moment of it. But when Nam Kung Vu Tin asked him to move, he put on a righteous expression, nodded solemnly, and took another step back. Boom! His azure water blade struck one gray rock serpent. At the same time, Lam Dao Not activated a fireball talisman. A dazzling fireball smashed into the other serpent. This one's own parents wouldn't recognize it now. The serpent struck by the fireball ended up even worse. Its head turned into a blackened lump of charcoal. It clearly would not survive. The fireball talisman had been refined by Nguy Tac himself, so seeing its power filled him with pride. But when he looked at the other serpent, he had to admit that the beautiful member of Iron Strategy Alliance he had just taken advantage of was quite formidable. The Grelrock serpent struck by her flame blade lay motionless on the ground. It was obviously dead. The power of Nam Kung Vu Ting's flame blade seemed comparable to a fireball talisman. Since a first-rank fireball talisman was at least as strong as a spell from a 5th-level Divine Sea Realm Cultivator, this long-legged beauty was probably at the same level. Looks like I need to work harder. Having lower cultivation than a beauty like this is embarrassing. Nguy Tac shook his head, then took the opportunity to glance at Nam Kung Vu Ting's long legs and the hips that had bumped into him several times earlier. If it had been that silver-robed little beauty pressed against me just now, it probably would have been even more thrilling. He secretly compared them. Nam Kung Vu Tin had better legs, long and straight, but the silver-robed beauty's hips seemed a little rounder and more curved. The two gray rock serpents were quickly dealt with by a beautiful 5th-level Divine Sea Realm expert, and one fireball talisman. The flames had not even completely died when Nguy Tac finally dragged his wandering eyes away from Nam Kung Vu Ting's body. Then a white streak suddenly dropped from the ceiling. An ice silk spider. The famous mid-tier 3rd-rank demonic beast itself. Damn, that thing is uglier than I imagined. This was Nguy Tac's first time seeing one clearly. He had always imagined an ice silk spider would look like an ordinary spider, only larger. He had been completely wrong. Its main body was not huge, perhaps the size of 2 large melons placed together, but it had a long neck. At the end of that neck sat a small head, making it look as though someone had stuck a radish onto a melon and then stuck a tiny banner on top of the radish. That alone was enough to leave a person speechless. 2 thick white fangs protruded from its mouth. Its tiny eyes glowed yellow with vicious light. Its round body and 8 long legs were covered in thick white hair, all radiating freezing cold. A shining strand of silk connected its abdomen to the cave ceiling. The ice silk spider descended along it and stared fiercely at Nguy Tac's group. Yet instead of attacking, it quickly crawled toward the ice mist fruit growing from the rock wall. Not good. It wants to swallow the ice mist fruit directly. Stop it! Lam Dao Nat rushed forward. A streak of yellow light shot from his hand toward the spider. A lightning element spell? Nguy Tac saw that the yellow light was formed from more than a dozen finger-thick bolts of lightning twisted together. They crackled violently, throwing off sparks as they flew. Among spells of the same level, lightning techniques were usually among the most powerful, so Nguy Tac was somewhat surprised when Lam Dao Nat used one. But the ice silk spider reacted even faster. At the exact moment the spell was released, another shining strand of silk shot from its abdomen and attached to a different part of the cave. The beast swung sideways through the air. The yellow lightning missed completely and struck the stone wall instead, scattering bright electrical sparks. No way! Nguy Tac and the others followed Lam Dao Nat into the larger chamber, preparing to surround the spider. But after dodging the lightning, the ice silk spider no longer moved toward the ice mist fruit. Instead, it hung in midair and looked coldly at the group. Another ice silk spider appeared in the left corner of the chamber. A third appeared at the far end. They were surrounding the cultivators. The one at the rear hung near the cave entrance, blocking their retreat. The first spider had apparently only pretended to go for the ice mist fruit in order to lure the group farther inside. These 3 beasts had clearly developed some intelligence. They were far smarter than ordinary demonic beasts. Seeing the 3 ice silk spiders stare at them as though they were stored food, Nguy Tac no longer dared take the situation lightly. He pulled out the Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant that had cost him 15 low-grade spirit stones and poured deep violet true essence into it. The pendant released a soft white glow. Whoosh! Nam Kung Vu Ting immediately launched a flame blade at the spider in front, but its reactions were astonishingly fast. With several of its legs pulling against 2 strands of silk, it shifted sideways and dodged the blade. At the same time, the other two ice silk spiders fired 7 or 8 strands of frozen silk from their abdomens. The threads shot toward Nguy Tac's group like arrows. Before the silk came within several zhang, the Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant sensed the attack and activated automatically. A pale, almost transparent barrier formed in front of the group. Every strand of frozen silk slammed into the barrier and stopped. Damn it! The silk had not reached him, but every activation of the Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant effectively consumed 3 low-grade spirit stones worth of power. Worse, the intense cold released by the frozen silk made the temperature around the group plummet. Nguy Tac suddenly felt as though he had been dropped into a frozen wasteland and began shivering. These 3 ice silk spiders are at least 70 or 80 years old. Ordinary spells will be difficult to land on them, Nam Kung Vu Ting said, her expression changing slightly as she sensed the cold. It's impossible to handle all 3 at once. I'll hold the one in front. The rest of you focus on killing the one on the left. Fire Reinhardt! As she spoke, her hands moved rapidly. Countless sparks suddenly appeared within a radius of more than 10 zhang around the spider in front, dense as falling rain. No matter which direction it tried to dodge, the flames burned across its body. The spider shrieked repeatedly in pain. Water arrow art? Nguy Tac released an azure water blade and immediately saw a stream of water gather before Diep Ko Vai. The water split into 3 arrows and shot forward. Whoosh! 2 missed as the left-hand ice silk spider dodged, but the third struck its abdomen with a dull thud. Because they both used water element techniques, Nguy Tac immediately felt a little more favorable toward this gentle-looking woman. Her spells seemed slightly weaker than his azure water blade, but it split into 3 projectiles and moved faster. No way! At the same time, Nguy Tac stared as Diep Tiu Chin, built like an iron tower, raised his door-sized heavy sword and charged directly toward the spider. Great strength art? Golden armor art? What happened next surprised Nguy Tac even more. Thud! 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 The ice silk spider that had been hit by Diep Ko Vai's water arrow did not appear badly injured, but the strike seemed to hurt. When it saw Diep Tiu Chin charging toward it, it immediately vented its rage on him. 7 or 8 strands of frozen silk shot out, but Diep Tiu Chin's skin suddenly turned pale gold. Although the cold quickly made his face turn purple, the strands of silk could not pierce his body. At the same time, 2 streams of blood red force appeared around his arms and heavy sword. His strength seemed to multiply several times. With one direct strike, he knocked the ice silk spider backward into the rock wall. A 3rd-ranked demonic beast was still a 3rd-ranked demonic beast. The impact sent chunks of stone flying. If a 2nd-ranked beast had taken such a blow, it might have been smashed apart. Yet the ice silk spider merely shrieked and bounced away like a ball. Apparently suffering only minor injuries, the spider at the rear had been weaving a web across the cave entrance. When it heard its companion cry out, it abandoned the half-finished white web and rushed toward Diep Tiu Chin at astonishing speed. The spider facing Nam Kung Vu Tin had several burned patches on its body, but it immediately released a layer of cold mist. The flames from the fire rain art failed to cause serious damage. The temperature inside the chamber continued dropping. White frost even began spreading across the ground and walls. Kill that one first! Full strength! Lam Dao Nat shouted. Boom! A fireball smashed into the ice silk spider that Diep Tiu Chin had sent flying. Lam Dao Nat had activated another fireball talisman refined by Nguy Tac. Twip! 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 The 3rd spider had already reached Diep Tiu Chin. Its frozen silk could not penetrate his golden skin, but the intense cold still affected him. His body began stiffening. 3rd-rank mid-beasts really do have thick hides. Seeing that Diep Tiu Chin was not yet in immediate danger, Nguy Tac and Diep Ko Vi began bombarding the spider struck by the fireball talisman with azure water blades and water arrows. The fireball had left dark red blood leaking from the spider's mouth. Even so, more than a dozen water attacks landing like a storm only opened 3 or 4 additional wounds. They still could not kill it quickly. Worse, the ice silk spider ignored Nguy Tac and Diep Ko Vi completely. It focused all its frozen silk on Diep Tiu Chin. The big man's teeth began chattering from the cold. His movements with the heavy sword became so slow that he could no longer hit anything. Whoosh! At that same moment, a streak of blue light shot from in front of Nam Kung Vu Ting and pierced the ice silk spider she was fighting. The blue light was several times faster than her flame blade. Even Nguy Tac and the others could not see it clearly. The spider had no time to dodge. Its head was pierced clean through. The blue light then returned to Nam Kung Vu Ting's hand. What was that? With power like that, could it be a magical treasure? Nguy Tac and Diep Ko Vi both sucked in cold breaths. With its head pierced, the ice silk spider fell motionless. Using the blue light had clearly consumed a huge amount of Nam Kung Vu Ting's true essence. She quickly pulled out a bottle of Qi recovery powder and drank it. Seeing that Nam Kung Vu Tin could not immediately help with the remaining 2 spiders, while Diep Tiu Chin was in danger, Diep Ko Vi anxiously pulled out a green talisman. A first-rank greenwood talisman. She poured true essence into it. The talisman transformed into a stream of green hard wind, which condensed into a thick emerald staff in midair and smashed into the ice silk spider already damaged by the fireball talisman. After taking that blow, the spider finally died. Its 8 legs twitched, and blood continuously foamed from its mouth. The last remaining ice silk spider saw that the situation had turned against it, and immediately fled along the white web stretched across the cave ceiling. Naturally, Nguy Tac's group had no intention of letting it escape. But ice silk spiders were third-rank demonic beasts with strong defenses, great speed, and a certain degree of intelligence. Although the group launched spell after spell and several attacks hit, the creature stubbornly continued climbing toward the top of the chamber. Damn it. Nguy Tac hesitated for only a moment before pulling out his only second-rank frost talisman. The spider was fleeing at full speed. Even if he used a fireball talisman, he might miss. A second-rank frost talisman, however, affected an area around 2 zhang wide and was much more powerful than a first-rank fireball talisman. Of course, it had also cost him 3 low-grade spirit stones. But 1 ice silk spider was worth around 60 low-grade spirit stones. Compared with that, 3 spirit stones were no longer worth worrying about. A second zhang frost talisman? Nguy Tac poured true essence into it. Freezing white mist surged continuously from the talisman. In an instant, countless glittering ice crystals formed in front of him, and the temperature throughout the chamber dropped several degrees. Nam Kung Vu Ting looked surprised. She clearly had not expected a dirt-poor independent cultivator like Nguy Tac to possess not only a spirit heaven jade pendant, but also an expensive second-rank talisman. Hit! While she was still surprised, Nguy Tac waved his hand. The frost talisman transformed into a stream of freezing energy filled with countless shards of ice and slammed into the fleeing ice silk spider. A second-rank talisman really is a second-rank talisman. That's powerful. Nguy Tac watched as the spider's body instantly stiffened. The white silk around it froze layer by layer. In a heartbeat, the entire beast became a block of ice, and countless small icy spikes formed along its webbing. Nguy Tac's azure water blade and Deep Kovai's water arrows struck the frozen mass together. Cracks spread across it, then the ice shattered completely. The ferocious ice silk spider broke into several pieces and died on the spot. Fortunately, Brother Nguy Tac had a second-rank frost talisman, otherwise that ice silk spider would have escaped. With the final beast dead, Lam Dao Nat relaxed and smiled at Nguy Tac. Too bad freezing it into pieces probably cost us a few spirit stones. Nguy Tac looked at the shattered spider with obvious regret. It's nothing, Lam Dao Nat said with a smile. At most, we lost 1 usable section of ice silk spider hide. The beast core and silk sac, the most valuable part, should still be intact. He pointed toward the ice mist fruit growing on the opposite wall. The ice mist fruit and the cold jade inside the mountain will more than compensate for any expenses or losses. Hearing this, Diep Tiu Chin and Diep Ko Vi both showed excited expressions. 3 ice silk spiders, 2 gray rock serpents, and the ice mist fruit were already worth more than 350 low-grade spirit stones. Even divided 5 ways, each person would receive at least 70. It was an unexpectedly rich harvest. Right, Nam Kung Vu Tin? Lam Dao Nat asked. That blue light you released earlier was extremely powerful and killed an ice silk spider in 1 strike. What kind of magical treasure was that? Why didn't you use it against the others? With my cultivation, how could I own such a powerful magical treasure? Nam Kung Vu Tin shook her head and opened her palm. It's only a fragment of 1. This piece still retains part of the original treasure's power, but it can only be used once every 24 hours, and it consumes a huge amount of true essence. Otherwise, I would have used it on the spider that tried to escape. A magical treasure fragment can still be used? Nguy Tac stared curiously at the object in her hand. It was thin, almost like a shard broken from a porcelain vase. But the fragment was a beautiful deep blue and slightly translucent. Nguy Tac could not tell whether it was made of refined metal or jade. Ancient vine-like patterns covered its surface, and it emitted a smooth, gentle glow. Nguy Tac knew that some magical treasures passed down from ancient times had been damaged, yet individual pieces could still retain part of the original power. Most true magical treasures were far stronger than ordinary talismans, so even a fragment containing only a small portion of that power could still be terrifying. Judging by what Nam Kung Vu Ting had just done, this fragment was more powerful than a second-rank talisman. Even though it could only be used once every 24 hours, it was probably worth nearly 30 low-grade spirit stones. So that's how it is. Huh? What's that on the chest of that corpse? Lam Dao Nat nodded, then suddenly stared at the dried corpse ahead of them and let out a surprised sound. What is it? Nguy Tac froze. He followed Lam Dao Nat's gaze, then his vision suddenly went dark. The flame in Lam Dao Nat's hand went out.